and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, roll call, please. Rock and fast.
Councilmember Yaffe?
Here.
Councilmember Chakoshay?
Here.
Councilmember Sauber?
Here.
Councilmember Reed?
Here.
Councilmember Leonard?
Here.
Vice Mayor Fuller?
Here.
Mayor Bruder?
Here.
All present. You have a quorum.
Okay, Ron, special presentation. Do we have any requests for withdrawals, deferments, or future agenda items? Anybody? Nope. Okay. Town managers report. Ron, this will be your last one. Go for it.
Could I call Mr. Sachs up to the... He'll do a presentation on our investment performance.
Hi, good evening. My name is Charles Sachs. I'm with the Bank of New York Mellon out of the Miami office. I think you received my packet dated October 30th. It showed some modest returns on the three portfolios, up about 1/3% for the third quarter of 2018. Balances as of the third quarter were $6,281,754. Estimated annual income of $141,742. As I've mentioned previously, and I know there have been some questions in the past about perhaps making some changes for the potential for increased yield in the portfolio, important to realize that we're limited based on the investment policy statement of the town. And to the extent that that's changed, to the extent that might have more flexibility for us, that would allow us to look at things potentially to have a little bit higher return. I will say that is something one needs to look at. There's a Florida statute that goes into a fair amount of detail with that, and it is something you can look into. And I know in the past there's been some questions related to that. On one hand, it's very important, and the number one thing being safety of the portfolio. That being said, having some flexibility down the road might allow us to have increased yields.
If I may, I'm pretty much the one every time that asks you the same question to make sure that you're evaluating and you're coming back with your recommendations as to what we should look at and what we should change, if anything. I understand now you're telling us that we should again potentially look at it again, but do you have any recommendations as far as the requirements?
It's a slippery slope in that from our end we would typically take the mandate from a client, and in this case on one hand, I think one needs to be very careful how that mandate is. Right now, it's a very strict mandate, but as one looks around, I think in other municipalities, it's probably on par with what they have. Sometimes you see, even to the extent of having corporate bonds in a portfolio, not even allowed at some points in time. Interesting enough, the state of Florida says if you don't have your own investment policy statement, we have one for you, and that one for you doesn't even talk about holding corporate bonds. In this case, we do hold them to at least an A or above rating for that. So from our end, I think it's very important to look at that. I believe sometimes cities bring in outside investment consultants to help them put this together to be able to weigh risk and rewards on it. From our end in the Miami office, it's important to realize we're primarily for private wealth individuals and not for municipalities. Not to say Bank of New York doesn't do that, but that's typically of size, whether it's 25 or 50 or $100 million on the institutional side. I've looked to other resources for that, but I really haven't come back to it. As best I can get a feel for, it's the city looking at it, if nothing else, updating that investment policy statement from 1995. It might be that no changes are made in that document, but that would be the opportunity where giving us a little extra leeway would give us that potential.
I think it's appropriate to look at it. I mean, you're telling us we haven't looked at it back in 23 years. At this point, at least we should be reviewing it. I mean, we may not change anything, or we may make an alteration, but I think it's gone long enough, and I think it's something we have to look at.
You know, I don't think that was 100% accurate, because I think we've actually re-examined our investment policy several times in my memory.
Yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong,
Yes.
JC, because you've been here even longer than Ron has.
We regularly, I mean, we're just having this conversation right now. We regularly take a look at our investment policy. I'm not necessarily inclined to get, less, I guess, less conservative. It's not, my money. It's not our money. So, and it's,
Right.
it's in the long run, it's been very steady for us. So.
Yeah, and so it hasn't been updated since then, but I'm sure
actual
you've looked
policy
at
may
it.
not have been
and
updated,
It's
but we
still a
looked at it.
valid
No,
and a great
Yeah, right
document.
now,
No, I
I think we've
understand that you
actually,
guys- you-
no,
I
we've
understand he
actually
looks at it.
looked at it, examined it, discussed it.
But no change has been made, and it might not need a
and
change,
no
but it's since
change- right,
1995
no
is
change
what
has
you're
been
saying.
made
Right.
in this
Since
particular
95.
fund.
Opinion on this matter where Alan short about 2.5 years ago.
Right.
And what was the outcome? What was your suggestion?
The issue was,
Frank,
Can you come up, honey?
right.
if I remember correctly, the issue was, what could the town invest in, what the options were and the like, and we had given an opinion with regard to Florida statutes and the town's policy. I think at that time there was an issue, or at least an exploration on some less conservative investments that we reminded I'd have to look at it, but it was certainly what the criteria is and what we have in place now.
And let me tell you, me personally, I think our bogey is what? The BBG, BARC Interim Government Credit Index?
That's the closest index, but the portfolios are more conservative. That's why most of the time we perform lower than that index, because that index does have a little mixture of lower quality bonds in it.
Right, and,
to some extent.
in my opinion, I would sacrifice, 40 basis points for liquidity and for safety.
I don't disagree, but I think I don't think we should be going many years without reviewing. So if we're saying 2.5 years at this point, and the market obviously has changed dramatically, we may decide not to make any changes, but I think it's something that has to be reviewed again, even internally for a little bit. I'd like to report back along those lines. Okay.
Anybody else? Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Dave,
Dave Caserta.
you're up.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the Commission and the wonderful residents of the town of Bay Harbor Islands. My name is Dave Caserta, and I have had the honor of representing the town up in Tallahassee for many years, and it has been an incredible relationship and one that I'm proud of. We've had some great accomplishments. As you all know, today I'm here. We have our annual post-general election workshop where and usually we have, and we know who's elected, but we don't. So, that'll make a big difference in the end. However, this is a time when I get to hear from all of you and some of the issues that you might still have that carry over from last year, some new issues, some of our projects that we're looking to pursue this year, and that is why we're here today. And I just real quick just want to make a mention. I'll have a gentleman who will be working with me up in Tallahassee, Ovi Guerra, who's has a great history in the legislature, both on the House and Senate. He's worked in Chief of Staff. He's worked on the legislative side. He's represented many different committees as well, health care and others, and so proud to have him working with me up there this year. Can always use it because, as you know, this year was a very interesting election year. A lot of newcomers coming into the process, and folks have to make sure that the town of Bay Harbor Islands is on their mind in a good way. So with that, I do want to, also I have to do this. I have to say congratulations to J.C. Jimenez for his position. And as you know, I think the world of him and an amazing individual. So great decision. And Ron, love you dearly. I hope that I know things will change where you're going to go now and in a good way. So, so with that, I'd like to open up the floor with some ideas. I will tell you, as you know, I still think as far as who controls the both houses is pretty evident. So you're gonna see a lot of issues come up with preemptions with cities, and especially if it deals with local businesses, where we're trying to affect someone's ability to do business in the municipality, and just other things. And obviously, Medicare, Medicaid is going to always be an issue. Criminal justice issues are going to be of importance to current administration. Vacation rentals might pop up again. Also the sanctuary city issues might arise, but obviously we're prepared. We've handled those for the last 2 or 3 years successfully. So it's just another year, and we've got to move forward and continue our successful, push. So with that, whoever, Madam Mayor, you would like to begin the effort and.
No, that's okay. Kelly, please.
If you would, please follow up, like you said, about the vacation rentals. And, for those of you who are not aware, the state preempts us from controlling them. There are a few things we can do. We register them, but it's out of our hands. So we would love to see our authority back. It's a tall order. We've been working on this for years.
Yes.
But at the very least, if we can get some more controls.
And I know, Commissioner, this has been a real big issue for you.
Yeah.
You've been up there fighting that battle, and,
And we have a lot more units coming online, and there are a lot of vacation rentals registering, and there are some problems and complaints. So.
Okay. Got that noted.
Elizabeth, anything?
As you stated, hi, Mr. Caserta.
Hi, David.
Anything related to home rule for us is always going to be a big deal, particularly as it springs out and it does affect us most closely with the vacation rentals. Obviously, we're always looking for assistance with our sewer lining project. We know that we've been working on that for several years, and we've had some really close passes. But if we can, get ahead on that, that would be something that would be really impactful for our residents.
Absolutely going to push that whole issue up there this year.
Right.
And I know you've always come up, and you've been there, and you've once again, everybody here has been up there at some point, and you know your issues, and you're well received when you come into everybody's office. So I really appreciate the fact that you do come up, because they do need to hear from you all as to the real issues and what's being impacted down here. So thank you again.
Thank you, sir.
I could mention a topic that's kind of a hot button. It would probably be communication and small cell towers and stuff like that, and make sure that we can do everything on the state level. I know a lot of that is federally mandated, but if we can do anything on the state level to protect our municipalities and our right to say, where equipment goes and where equipment is prohibited from going, I think that would benefit the residents of Bay Harbor Islands.
Yeah. I have a long list, so let me just say that I have a lot of I have a lot of faith that our legislative committee is going to be headed up by Mayor Bermudez from the city of Doral, and I'd like to just ask that our council concur that that what we do as the county league, that we get on board, because a lot of those things we narrow down from not just local issues, but also from the Florida League down to just a few, and those are the ones that we press really hard for. So those items that committee approves, that's kind of what I'm going to be going for, because there's only so many bills you can be looking at. So and obviously I want to invite Dave to play a role in that, obviously. So
thank you, and we'll converse further on the different issues as they get developed.
So.
Thank you, Jordan.
And congratulations to you on your
thank you, appreciate it.
President. It's going to be great year for everybody.
Thank you.
So Dave, as a member of the Finance, Taxation, and Personnel Policy Committee for the League, I'm particularly interested in the continuing attacks on local taxing authorities, or the authority that we as municipalities have, looking at communication services taxes and business tax receipts and so forth. So I'd like to be alerted as the bills come up in the legislature this year on those issues.
Okay. Absolutely.
Dave, you and I will continue our conversation and see what we can do with regard. My question as far as how we deal with security meetings, so we can actually have them. I know we've had our discussion. We'll continue it. I don't want to eat time tonight.
Okay.
But there are steps we can take to further allow us to have the security meetings we need to protect the school.
Yeah, and I do want to say that, compliment you, and you've done an incredibly fantastic job to try to get to the bottom of that issue and to make sure that what is done in that area is done in a proper and secure way.
You've been helping. We're going to see what we can do. We'll see if we can get it done.
So I'm looking forward to working on it, because that's something I think is going to be critical and important, especially with what's going on today, more and more so.
Unfortunately.
So, absolutely. Do want to mention, and maybe I'll talk to JC, some of the projects that we still, obviously the sewer and the police facility. Is that things that we're going to take a look at? Because I have some other
the sewer for
sewer
sure.
lining lateral?
Sewer lining for sure. As far as any town hall improvements or whatever. Well, that's probably off for a little
Dave,
while.
I think you need to explain to the public that when we go up there, we're going up there to solicit for funds, and that we've been successful all the way up to the governor's desk, and then the governor takes his mighty little pen. So I do think that our constituents need to know that, that you as well as our town mayor and the council are diligent working to find outside source of funding.
Yes.
When we go up there, and that we've been successful up to the governor's desk.
Yeah, and not always. I mean, no, we've passed. I mean, I think there might have been 1 or 2 incidences where that has occurred. So we've done pretty well over the years, and it has a lot to do with the fact that they see you coming up there, they hear it from you, they understand that these are true issues, and as you know, you really can't understand this process until you actually come up there and see it in action. Because everybody thinks, oh, why can't you get this done, or why can't it's really an interesting process, and there's a lot of people that you have to get to sign off on all of these issues, and then through a budget process, and then everybody else is competing, and so yes, it is a difficult task. We have done pretty well. We're going to continue to do well. I don't give up, and I know you don't either. So, but thank you for bringing that up, because I do think the residents do need to understand how hard you work up in Tallahassee when you're up there to try to get these issues.
I think JC has a lot to do with that too.
Oh no, without a doubt. Let me tell you something.
He's our silent,
The key to this is making sure information gets funneled at the times that they need it, and that's one of the most difficult things, especially with other folks that we work with. And there has never been a time that Ron and JC, especially JC, I've worked with you very closely over the years, that information has not gotten to me when it was supposed to get to me, and everybody's impressed. He goes up there, he's got a layout, he's got a plan, he's got documents, and everybody's like, oh wow, this is a city run. You're running a city like this. This is great. So absolutely. Absolutely.
Kudos, by the way, to Dave. We should mention it because it's been a couple of years, but in the last 3 years, we got over $1.5 million from this legislature, and with Governor Scott, that's a very impressive feat. $1.5 million with $1 million line item in the budget. I mean, that is...
Wait, let's clarify. That's the $1.5 million, just so everybody knows, that got passed, not just what this is not. This does not include what the governor vetoed.
Yeah, but
this is the money where we actually got the money in our pockets.
We got the money in our pockets, $1.5 million for this town. That's really impressive. So, and to be honest, Dave played... we wouldn't have gotten that money without Dave, so...
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And we have other little issues that people don't get to see, too, that we all work on, hard docs and this and that. And so, listen, it's exciting. And what makes it happen is a very good team. And so thank you for letting me be on that team. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your
Dave, before you wrap, I'd like to request that you keep your eye on the Florida League of Cities legislative agenda, which often mirrors, what serves the best interest of municipalities. And like Elizabeth Tricochet said, Councilmember Tricochet said that we need to advocate strongly for everything that protects home rule.
Yes, absolutely. And the funny thing about the League of Cities, though, as you know, they're always going out, and we're always trying to assist in anywhere we can because there's so many issues. So we all work pretty well together, all the folks representing the different cities and the Florida League. So without a doubt, we'll continue to do that. Thank you.
Right.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thanks,
and
Dave.
We'll see you in Tallahassee.
See you in
and
Tallahassee.
welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Okay, number 3, approval of appointment of J.C. Jimenez as town manager.
I'll move it.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, a resolution approving an employment agreement between J.C. Jimenez and the town of Bay Harbor Island and authorizing the mayor to execute the attached agreement.
I'll move it.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations,
Congratulations.
J.C.
That means a lot to me. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Now you run the clock.
Sorry we couldn't make it more exciting for you.
Chief, if you can come forward, please.
Oh, before we do, I have one of the things that I discussed with our chief and our staff is to have a little thank you party for the manager, a welcome party, and I know there's an appropriation. I'd like to ask the council if we could appropriate no more than $2,300 for that event. I think it would be proper. We would need council approval for that. So.
The event on Monday, the 19th.
Yeah.
At what time?
I don't know. At
5.
There we go.
Bridget.
So, is there support for that?
Yes.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye. Thank you. Sure.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Sean?
Who you wanted to chief up?
I have the chief. Hey, don't be shy.
You guys are looking like
You guys
you're
are looking
looking like I serve a warrant or something like that.
Is somebody getting arrested?
We have some good news and some bad news. If I could ask Town Manager Wasson to please come forward. We know how much he enjoys being in the
Wait
limelight.
until tomorrow. Wait until he's on.
Ron, on behalf of the men and women of the Bay Harbor Islands Police Department, we would like to congratulate you on your new appointment to the City Manager position in Aventura, and also for your retirement here in Bay Harbor, where you've proudly served for the last 11 years. John Maxwell once said, "Leadership is not about titles, positions, or flowcharts. It's about one life influencing another." Town Manager Wasson embraces that quote daily by maintaining close relationships with all town employees and through strong practices. Through Town Manager Wasson's vision, his experience, and the participatory management style that he has been instrumental in helping this agency become a premier police department, probably one of the best small departments in Miami-Dade County, as it relates to technology, low crime, investigative accomplishments, and policy that's based on accreditation procedures. More specific to this point, the BHIPD has become one of the best equipped agencies for tactical response in this area because of his doings. Along with the equipment, Mr. Wasson has also been instrumental in providing the means for our officers to attain over 3,000 hours of in-service training in the past 5.5 years. This training ranging from trauma first aid, opioid treatment, active shooter and firearms, leadership management, crime prevention, and investigation techniques. And I can say by no uncertain terms that's more than any other agency is doing in this area, and it's crucial at this point. Mr. Wasson, our loss will be Aventura's gain for sure. But we are confident that your succession plan with JC has left us in more than capable hands. So we want to thank you for having that vision and for providing great leadership for everybody. On behalf of the agency, you will be sorely missed. We wish you nothing but success, health, and happiness in your next chapter. Although this is a bittersweet, we're very fortunate for the incoming manager that we have also. Thank you. So without repeating everything I just said, in appreciation for your leadership and contribution to the Bay Harbor Islands Police Department, your leadership has provided the foundation for the police department to become an accredited premier agency. The members of the police department we do wish you the best in your retirement and as your city manager in Aventura. Congratulations.
Okay. Council reports. Jordan?
Okay. Well, first of all, congratulations to JC. I know you're going to do a great job.
Thank you.
You really are. But really, I have to say, you know, congratulations and a very heavy-hearted farewell to Ron. For the last 11 years, Ron representing this town has been, you know, I mean, what can I say? Your word is your bond. And it's very hard in politics and in government to find someone of your stature, and you will be sorely missed. I mean, really, Ron, thank you so much for your service to this town. We're never going to forget that. Other than that, I think we have a long agenda, so I'd rather just move on.
Bob?
Ron, I too want to congratulate you on your new position and thank you for 11 years of service to the town of Bay Harbor Islands, not just to the town, but all the people who live here. I've been fortunate to work with you the entire 11 years that you've been our town manager, and it's been a great experience. You've really given a lot to this town, added a lot to this town, and enabled the town to be in the position that it is in today, along with working with JC and the other members of the staff. So I thank you and congratulate you, and I also congratulate JC, who I've also worked with for a good number of years, and I look forward to your tenure as town manager. And you've got some great ideas, and I think the town's going to continue moving forward in a very positive direction, and I thank you both for that. Briefly, I just want to say that a number of us will be traveling to Orlando tomorrow for Florida League of City meetings, and that'll be over in the next couple of days. And we had the Miami-Dade League of Cities Best Practices seminar last month. I participated in a panel discussion on condo corruption that was chaired by or moderated by Vice Mayor Dana Goldman of Sunny Isles Beach, and that was a very interesting experience, and I appreciated the opportunity to participate in that. Sunday we had a great Veterans Day ceremony thanking our veterans, and many of our police officers and other members of our staff are veterans, and I thank them for their service to our country and to our community, and it was a very good afternoon barbecue and ceremony. And Bridget, thank you for organizing. Thank you.
I'll try and make it short. I will start the same way. First of all, Ron, I don't think any of us can really put into words how much you've meant to the town over the last decade plus, and we've seen you put your heart and your soul into the town. I will always, always remember the fact that right after the storm, that's the funniest thing, is that throughout all these years, that's the thing that catches my mind more than anything else. Right after the storm, here you are out there on the causeway, picking up trash, trying to make sure this place looked the way it should, because you understood this was your home too. And it means everything in the world to us, from everybody up here to the individual citizens. We just can't thank you enough, and we wish you all the success and happiness in your new venture over at Aventura. JC, you got huge shoes to fill, but I have no doubt that you're going to fill them. We've already sat down and spoken, and I know you're hitting the ground running. Actually, you started it already. You didn't wait for the body to be cold before you're out there.
Just minor tweaks here and there.
Right.
No, we were amazingly blessed to have you available here, and we appreciate the fact that you stayed loyal to us, and we're happy to stay loyal to you. And again, congratulations.
Your support was overwhelming, and it means a lot.
Thank you. And then listen, again, just to run down, as Bob had said, we always historically always just put down some of the events we were at. Again, I agree, Bridget, the event for Veterans Day was wonderful. You did a great job, and I appreciate you doing that. Also, the Halloween event, I hope everybody enjoyed it, and hopefully next year we even get more kids out there. It was an incredible event. We had several hundred kids out there. And it just was run perfectly this time. The Best Practices Conference, again, this actually run by Jordan, and I attended, and I appreciate it over there. We are going tomorrow to Orlando for the Florida League. Miami-Dade County, and I was also at the Miami-Dade County League meeting just recently as well. But other than that, everybody, because we have no meeting next month, I will wish you an early happy Thanksgiving, a happy and healthy holiday and New Year.
Elizabeth.
So I'm not going to reiterate what everyone said, although I feel the same way. I do want to add something personal and just say that I felt truly blessed, and I learned so much from you, Ron. I am by far the youngest council member here in terms of years, and you were always so patient and so loving and so willing to help with your time and information. And I asked a lot of questions, so I really appreciate it, and it was very impactful. I also attended the car show, which we haven't mentioned yet, but a number of our council members, I think actually everyone attended the car show, which was just an amazing success. Thank you so much to staff for working on that. Same thing with the Halloween event that we had. I also attended the League of Cities meeting over in Bal Harbour, and I have to say, these three events that I just talked about really, for me, incorporated what Bay Harbor is really about. It's about being a neighborhood. It's about working together. It's about bettering the community. And so that was wonderful. I do want to just thank staff. It's not something we've talked about yet. I know there's been a lot of work that we've been doing on some of our recreational programs. And I just really want to thank you guys for being so open and so willing to make some changes and to just better the programming that we're putting out there. And so I just want to verbally say thank you guys, and I'm looking forward to, continuing to bring it to the standard that we all want it to be. Callie.
I will join my colleagues in thanking you very much, Ron, for your service and wishing you the best of luck. And JC, I'm very excited and invigorated for all of your plans. They're too numerous to mention, but,
No, I'm slowly, but I'm not going to answer all at once.
Yeah, well, you provided us a letter, and the virtual town hall and improving communication and modernizing things I really look forward to, as do many. And like Josh, Ron, the thing that stands out in my mind that I will, always remember you for and appreciate is Hurricane Irma. Not so much the aftermath and cleaning up, but watching you drive around with the police chief, pretty much immediately after the storm. I know you hunkered down here. I happen to be here as well. And we had some serious crime threats. And, of course, you have vast law enforcement experience, but to me, your legacy is really just increasing the professionalism, elevating the level of professionalism of our police department, and that's very important to me, safety. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but since our last meeting, unfortunately, a lot of very sad incidents, violent incidents have happened all over the country. And, I know some of them really hit home for a lot of reasons. And so, that being said, having this professional police department and town staff and manager who is right on that and will be there to protect us, and there are many things that they will share with us, but there are many things that they will not for our own security. They will be making arrangements to protect us in some things that they are not able to share for our own good. So it lets me sleep very well at night knowing that we're protected against harm from our wonderful staff and police department. And we support that. All of us, we can agree, we support all those measures.
Thank you so much. Agreed.
Real quick, I also want to give a heartfelt congratulations to our new town manager. I'm not a prophet or anything like that, but I kind of envisioned this happening, and I think it's appropriate, and I think you guys did a great job, and I think we all did a great job, because this is a great result. And Ron, you know how I feel about you, because I never hide my feelings. The minute I met you, I loved you. And now that you're leaving, I still love you. And I know that you did, and I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, Hurricane Irma, everybody knows the story on how great of a job you did, but, in my opinion, you did a great job, because all I can remember are good things, all the positive things that you did, and, that's what sticks, and that's what's eternal, and you left your footprint in the sand in Bay Harbor Islands, and for that, we're totally grateful. And we'll always be here for you, you know what I'm saying? This past month, apart from a couple of meetings that were already mentioned, I also moderated a panel at the Miami-Dade County League of Cities Best Practices Conference, and it was on summer internships. It was a very, very lively discussion. We had a presentation by members of the Children's Trust who organized summer internships for youth. There were speakers from Miami-Dade County and from Miami-Dade County Public Schools. And also last week, I attended the National League of Cities Conference in Los Angeles, California. There were several workshops that I attended. Some of the highlighted ones were workshops on housing. I attended a workshop on marijuana and how municipalities should handle applications and things like that for marijuana. It just so happens to be something about that is on our agenda tonight, I think. There was a wonderful presentation by a company called ESRI, E-S-R-I, and they have a product that they sell to both the public sector and the private sector called ArcGIS. It's a GIS program, which stands for geographic information system. But they've taken this product and made it incredibly useful for planning and for other activities that municipalities engage in. It was very, very interesting. I've been told by a third party that Miami-Dade County might have a relationship with ESRI and that we might have access to their software. So it's something that we as a council should look into, because it's very, very interesting, and the information is very, very useful. And finally, I'll say I attended a lecture in Los Angeles that was put on by Elon Musk, which talked about transportation. He introduced the whole notion of his boring company, and it was anything but boring. But it was, it's been in the news that Elon Musk and his company, the Boring Company, is going to do a test run of an underground transportation system. In December, he's launching the first mile of track, and it was, very, very interesting, and it could possibly be the future of transportation. And I just want to punctuate my comments by saying that my attendance at the National League of Cities was as a representative of the Florida League of Cities, because I'm the vice president of the Florida League of Cities, and there were no taxpayer dollars that were spent on that trip to Los Angeles. So that's my report, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. I also want to say I worked with Ron for 11 years, and it was with great sadness when he called us to tell us that he was leaving. And like everybody said, it's been an amazing ride, and we were very lucky to have somebody. And I was talking to my husband Harry today, and he said to me, there's no price for loyalty and trust. And we were very lucky to have somebody who gave us their loyalty and their trust. And I can only say that Aventura is very lucky to have you. And we want to thank you for training JC so well, because we are all extremely excited about having JC to start his endeavors into the town. And I know it's going to be an easy transition, and it's going to be an exciting time for the town to see what changes and what stamp JC wants to put on the management of this town. And we will be loyal and supportive of you, JC. We want to let you know that.
Mayor, if I could just take one quick second. I just want to thank everybody on the council. JC, all the really good ideas were his ideas. And he did most of the ones that didn't work out so well, he tried to talk me out of. I was very lucky to have people on the council that supported us, and I can't tell you how much that means when you're trying to do this job, because it's not always easy sledding, because you can't make everybody happy all the time, and that even includes the council. So I never took anything when things weren't going so good, or things were a little difficult. It was never personal, and I always looked like it was for my own benefit that things were being said to me. You've all said very nice things about me, but there's a lot of people in the audience right now, all the directors that really grew up with me, and you couldn't do this job without them. I mean, we talk about being on the Causeway, Marlene, Alba's husband, Bridget. There was a lot of people out there, Patrick, all out there picking up debris and whatever, and our hearts were in it. Like it was. Never had to twist anybody's arm to do it. As far as the police chief, don't give me any credit for updating the police department, because Sean, you have to run to catch up to him. He's a very driven person, if you don't know that by now. He'll catch anybody that does anything in this town, and I mean that. They just wrapped up a great case with a couple of stolen bikes that, he'll tell you at another time, but, put together, got these guys, tracked them down. Their detectives are second to none. They run a very tight ship, and they're very motivated, because he's very motivated. You just can walk through that police department and see all the improvements he's made. Dragging me along a lot of times, kicking and screaming, because it's budgetary, but he's always looking for the next thing to make us better. And And truthfully, I learned more than from J.C. than he ever learned from me, and that's the truth. So, that's it.
Also,
Thank you.
now that I also want to say that I would like to have a joint meeting between the P&Z and invite the East Island residents to come with the council and have a discussion about the East Island, the construction, and so that we can have an open discussion of their interest and what is going on the East Island. So if you could work it out to see when in January we can do that, and please put it on the agenda and put it out to the public, I'd appreciate it.
Okay. Madam Mayor, just, please.
Senator Pizzo.
Senator-elect
I don't know
Pizzo.
if
He
we
came?
can- if it's
Yeah,
okay
Senator-elect
with you.
Pizzo is back here.
I can't see him.
All right.
Yeah.
Floor for just a few minutes.
Okay. Hi, Chase. Chase, I can't see you because I have a television in front of me. Please come forward.
Good evening, everybody. I know all of you, but just wanted to come and introduce myself to all of you. My name is Jason Pizzo, and I am your state senator-elect. I'll be sworn in on Tuesday morning. Very excited to begin this next upcoming session, which begins in March. I personally, again, know all of you and appreciate all of your, on a personal level, all of your support. We have a very, very exciting and extended number of items that are coming up for this session. So you all are also very aware that I have 15 cities in my district. They are wildly diverse. So while I have the Bay Harbors and Bal Harbors and Golden Beach and Aventuras, we also have sections of the city of Miami, which include Overtown and Liberty City, Brownsville, and Little Haiti. So safety and security are obviously huge issues for me as a former prosecutor, as a dad, and as a resident of North Miami Beach. You all have my numbers and my contact. I did want to just take that opportunity to introduce Maggie, that most of you know as well. Maggie Gerson has just... well, I'll tell you why you should clap.
Come up, Maggie.
Maggie served as a...
She's behind the screen.
Maggie served as a state prosecutor for 15 years, handling some of the most difficult homicides here in the county, and is taking a 65% pay cut to become the chief legislative aide in Tallahassee for this community. So I'm indebted to her, and we're bringing on another lawyer and trying to be overqualified as far as our legislative aides are concerned. But we look forward again to the session. We spoke to the President-elect this evening, and we think we're going to get a lot done. And of course, I'm open to you and available to you, and please reach out. I hope to see most of you up in Tallahassee as well. And Ron is not off the hook with me. He's going to Aventura, which is also one of my cities. So, again, I just wanted to say hello. We leave tomorrow morning very early to head up there for orientation. So just try to hit as many cities as possible. And I'll work with JC and introduce myself and make myself available for anything that's on your agenda. I thank you, on a personal note, all of you, very much for getting me here. Thank you.
No,
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Okay, we're going to move on to the public.
Madam Mayor, just to mention briefly, for January, I'd like to put on, for our kids, from the last league meeting, the MOU, so we can get that, just want to put that on for January.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Sure.
Can we have now public comments? Victor Maya?
Mayor, if I may be, I just wanted to clarify one thing. There seems to be on social media, and I've been speaking with some of you and some residents, some concern or some confusion as to what the role of the council is, or what the powers of the council is when it comes to building heights in the RM3 district. There's some, I know on next door, there's some confusion as to that they're saying that the town council can vote buildings higher than 75 feet. And I want to just clarify that that is not true. That is not the case. The code is, and the charter is clear. It's 75 feet for everything. And Marlene, correct me if I'm wrong. I think the reference there in the charter where it says the town council can vote, that means they can vote to send it to the voters. Doesn't mean that they can vote to go above 75 feet. And Marlene, you can correct me if I'm wrong on that.
Mayor, can I say something about that?
Yes.
I neglected to say earlier that I just want to recognize the residents of this town. They overwhelmingly came out to participate, not only on election day but prior to election day, whether they were for or against the referendum project. As J.C. said, the the people of the town have spoken. They've reaffirmed their determination to maintain building heights at a certain level. You know, we recognize that, and our town council doesn't have the authority nor the desire to go against the wishes of the members of the community who came out and voted and you know, and let us know what their opinion is on that issue. So I thank all of you who participated.
Okay. John,
I mean, since we're talking about that very, very briefly.
brief.
Yeah, you know, there was, you know, I saw something plastered on my son's condominium, you know, that said, you know, who voted in favor of putting that, you know, the referendum on the ballot. And Madam Clerk, if you can, do you remember how we voted on that on that item?
I saw the same flyer you're talking about. It incorrectly named you as one of the persons that voted for it. I, off the top of my head, don't remember. I believe it was Elizabeth, the fourth person, not you.
That's
So
correct.
if that's what you're referring to.
Right. Just to get it on record, it was 4-3.
Yes, 4-3.
And I voted against it on the ballot.
Okay. John, better.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to try hard tonight. My wife always says she can't hear me.
Would you like to use the other microphone? Would it be easier for you?
Well, then I might sing Jumpin' Jack Flash again. So I'm glad the referendum came up, because that's what I'm talking about, here to talk about tonight. I want to publicly apologize for the 2 postcards advocating vote no. Not for the postcards themselves, but for the disclaimer. They should have said, paid for by John C. Vetter, 10350 West Bay Harbor Drive, Apartment 10H, Bay Harbor Islands, Florida, 33154. I made a mistake. It's my fault, mine alone. It was my first time to pay for campaign materials, and when I saw the final draft ready to go to printing, I'm like, don't we need something along the bottom that says something? Everybody else's seems to. I didn't know what it was called. I don't remember where I first saw the word disclaimer, but it could have been any of the materials I received at television ads. In any event, I Googled Florida disclaimer and determined that I did need one, but I couldn't find anything on what it should say. I mean, there's a reason why I'm on medical leave. I have chronic vertigo of central origin, and my brain uses so much energy trying to feel balanced that I have little left for other cognitive activities. So as I couldn't find any applicable language, I wrote, paid for by concerned citizens of Bay Harbor Islands, thinking that other people may want to pay for something, but they never did, and I didn't solicit anybody to do it. So I didn't get any complaints about it didn't hear of any complaints till the afternoon of Election Day, and then only secondhand. So I went to our town clerk, Marlene, who printed out information on PACs, and I looked at the frequently asked questions section, and I concluded that a PAC wasn't applicable. It was my money from my checking account, and nobody else contributed. It was just me. But I still had the issue of the disclaimer, and it was the mailings are already out. Hopefully, I didn't get the first one. I got the second one on Election Day. But it's too late to fix it. So later that day, I spoke to Gary Holland, who's holds the position of Assistant General Counsel at the Florida Department of State, and we discussed it was my first time paying for mailers. I was trying to defend my home, neighborhood, and town, and I couldn't find anything online on the language I was supposed to use. And he sent me links to the pertinent statutes and code, Florida statutes and code sections, so I will not make this mistake again. I know Bay Harbor Vision's probably not in attendance, but if you know them, please let them know that I apologize for that.
Thank you for your time. Francis Newhut?
Francis Newhut, 1060 Kane Concourse. And my topic tonight is, where is transparency? Okay. Where is transparency when council did not request any discussion of a moratorium, Section 2316-1, after Citizens 1 keeping the 75 feet charter height restriction? Isn't it in the public's best interest that new buildings conform to ordinances and our comprehensive plan that benefit the quality of life before issuing building permits? There was no public scrutiny on that topic. Another is, where is the transparency when, unlike Bal Harbor, Surfside, Miami Beach, Aventura, etc., congratulations, Council, for finally eliminating our public broadcasting Channel 88. This was after 10 years of trying very hard, and only a few weeks before our 11/6/2018 town election. Again, no public scrutiny. Another is, where is transparency when council members met individually with attorneys and lobbyists of Bal Harbor Shops and Church by the Sea, a religious institution, and did not have a public meeting to discuss grabbing plus or minus 100 ancillary usage parking spaces with town citizens and residents? There was, again, no public scrutiny. Okay, where is transparency when town staff negotiated with private developers to allegedly grab our municipal public land, public right-of-ways for a $10 deed, instead of not requiring undergrounding, a lawful Bay Harbor practice, Section 514-7A, instead of public utility poles being placed in the middle of our streets? Again, no public scrutiny. Another is, where is transparency when Bay Harbor Council approved collecting millions and millions of dollars of government TDR money? And when asked, all we were told was it went into a public fund, instead of seeing our new parks, open spaces with grass and trees and parking. Again, no public scrutiny. Thank you.
Thank you. Victor Nieto, please come forward. Thank you.
Good evening, council members. Victor Nieto, 10143 East Bay Harbor Drive. I call on you to do what you can. I'm glad that we have a state senator here. Perhaps he could help too. To push for locating a new tri-rail station on 123rd Street, short distance west of Biscayne. It is in our town's best interest. It's in the interest of the residents, I believe, and stakeholders of Bay Harbor to locate it there instead of at 151st Street, where some powerful interests are trying to locate it. 123rd Street, 125th Street, town center of North Miami will be revitalized by that stop being there, and it could mean more jobs and economic opportunities for our residents. By us being a short distance from that tri-rail station, we will be able to go downtown as well as north, the great distances, without having to travel by car. Better yet, by hopping on a bus, or our bus, or the Bal Harbor or Surfside, trolley bus, we will be able to travel without using a car to go long distances. Bottom line, it will increase the value of our residents and hence grow our tax base. Maybe you all could get a raise out of it, 100%. Okay, you well deserve it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That's it.
Okay, are we done with public comment?
On
Okay,
consent.
let's move to the consent agenda, please.
I'll move it.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. Okay, number 9. Town manager.
Item number 9, consideration and approval of an ordinance on second reading, amending Chapter 16 of the Town Code, clarifying the benefits payable to the beneficiaries of vested terminated members who die prior to reaching their normal retirement age.
An ordinance of the Town Council of the Town of Bay Harbor Islands, Florida, amending Chapter 16, the Town of Bay Harbor Islands Employees Retirement System, Town of Bay Harbor Islands Code of Ordinances, clarifying the benefits payable to the beneficiaries of vested terminated members who die prior to reaching their normal retirement date, providing for severability, providing for codification, and providing for an effective date.
I'll move it.
Second.
Any discussion?
Call question.
Hearing none, let's poll vote.
Councilmember Yaffe?
4.
Councilmember Chicoche?
4.
Councilmember Salver?
4.
Councilmember Reed?
4.
Councilmember Leonard?
4.
Vice Mayor Fuller?
4.
And Mayor Bruder stepped out. It passes.
Let's go to number 10.
Number 10, discussion and direction requested by the town attorney regarding drafting an ordinance to either prohibit or regulate medical marijuana treatment centers and medical dispensing facilities within the town.
Okay, Marlene, I think you put it on here, and Frank.
Well, Frank is just looking for direction. I mean, see what the council.
Well, I think previously we had gone ahead. Actually, as far as the discussion, we had actually. I know we had the moratorium, and I know we had asked for it to come on for a little bit time period because we didn't want to go another 6 months. The conversation then becomes what we do from here. And I want to hear if anybody else has any concepts of what we want to try and do, whether we want to extend it to 6 months or if we wanted to try and come up with a new code.
I'm not interested in extending it any further. I think we need to make a decision, or should make it, not need to, but should make a decision one way or another as to whether we want to ban or regulate. I'm personally in favor of regulating.
Isaac just went to a conference where he mentioned, I'm intrigued to find out what his opinion is since he just had, a seminar on that. So.
It was interesting because I think most of the examples that were discussed are cities within states that have legalized marijuana, both medicinal and recreational. Okay. So they spoke to the process of following applications through the process and qualifying the candidates and identifying the appropriate places to put both dispensaries and distribution points and retail outlets and things like that. So in Florida it wasn't 100% applicable because we have a very limited,
number of licenses and everything else.
Limited number of licenses, et cetera, et cetera. So, my personal opinion is that I'm neither, I'm neutral. But I think I agree with Bob in that we should, make a decision, and he feels we should regulate. Let's regulate.
Yeah. Just so we're clear as to the options. You really have one option. The option is to ban, which you're allowed to do, or otherwise you would authorize dispensaries to be able to file applications and be treated no differently than a pharmacy.
Right.
We have a pharmacy here. Right. You could seek a business tax receipt and to conduct business in anywhere in the business district, which allows for retail, which that would be as well. So it would have to, your decision is really no more or less than whether to ban it, which the state statute allows, or otherwise
or
you're
to
allowing
accept it and let it go from there. So I
That's
guess
it. And the statute is highly regulative, and in our town, since there is a pharmacy, it would be anywhere in the business district.
Right, except it's near the school. Elizabeth,
yes, it's 500 feet from the school.
Correct,
right,
unless we were to specifically vote on a location within 500 feet, which you have the ability to do under the statute.
Right, I don't think there's an appetite. I mean, I'd be wrong. I might be wrong, but I don't think there's an appetite to allow it within 500 feet of the school. So, that being said, okay, let me go back.
That's okay.
Kelly was up.
Kelly?
This is a very hard one for me. I come from a law enforcement background. But we have to remind ourselves that this is medicinal marijuana. It's not recreational. you know, we have a very small business district. I think, you know, the main question is it in the best interest of all members of the town and the business district? You know, will it bring more people to our restaurants, our businesses? You know, no, seriously. I mean, that's the bottom line, and it's really a shame the way the law is written that it's all or nothing.
Yeah.
You know, it's a shame that we can't have a little more control over it, and I don't know if that'll change in this legislative session, if that's up for grabs or not.
I don't think
doubt
it's going to change
yeah.
that much, but I think it's more a matter of whether or not we want to just regulate business in general, if we want to have private businesses
Yeah,
that
I
we
mean,
decide which kind.
I
That's-
look to you and to anyone in the audience, you know, for guidance and suggestions, because, you know, I'm really not sure about it if it's in the best interest, if it's fair, you know, but I really do think overwhelmingly of the ill people, sick children who might benefit from this. But then again, could it be closely located over one of the bridges or not?
Yeah, that's oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to ask, you know, right now we have this, but that doesn't mean recreational marijuana is next. And I spent time in Massachusetts where they have recreational and they have both uses. And it's very interesting because, you know, it's a slippery, I think, like you. First of all, I don't think that people who come to get a prescription of that is going to be eating. I don't think it brings much to the business district. I think that people who come for medication they get their medication, and usually they're going. Because, you know, those who are ill and who use it are usually AIDS patients, cancer patients, or they're using it for some type of pain medication. And I just think that it's a slippery slope, and right now it's not recreational, but that, you know, there's nothing to say that once we open that can of worms that it's not going to move on. And I think there's plenty of places outside of our area where we have so many children from all, you know, from Bay Harbor, Bal Harbour, and Surfside coming into our town, walking around and then leaving, and we have such a prominent school that you're right. They have over the bridge. There's already a place over the bridge that has it. I think Surfside might be looking to have it. Miami Beach has it, and there's plenty of places to get it. And I don't think that it is in the best interest of our town to have that type of business.
So I do want to say there is, and I was going to say, there is a location in North Miami within 300 feet of the other side of the causeway. And I do always think, like Councilmember Reed was talking about, if I had a child that has seizure disorder, if I had a child that had cancer, which is always where my heart goes, if I had a parent that was suffering, what would I want? But I think in terms of, you know, my responsibility and our responsibility as a council is always to do what's for the greatest good for the greatest number of the citizens that we have here. And what I keep coming back to is our geography. I keep coming back to the fact that we're small islands. We're not talking about, you know, expansive spaces where, you know, we can locate this a significant different distance, you know, or there's space. We're a very small set of islands, and I think for me, you know, my position is at this point, given the unknowns that we have legislatively and what we do know about our geography, my personal opinion at this point is to ban. I did talk to a number of residents and kind of feel out how they felt, and it was a similar dialogue to kind of where my heart keeps going back to.
Well, I've got to say, I have a different feeling on it. My thought is this, is that we talk about what's for the best interest of the town, and I agree, that's what we all want up here, but that's what the marketplace is there for, to decide. The fact is, if the town members, the people that actually live in the town, decide that they want it or they need it for whatever medical purpose, and they patron that particular business, then we've been told at that point that it actually helps the town. But if there is no demand, if the town people don't want it, then they won't go here, or they'll go somewhere else, or they won't use it at all. I don't think we're in the business of deciding essentially what type of business is over the site of what individual citizens want. If citizens believe that this is something that actually helps them, give them the option. And the businesses may not come here. We may allow it for it to enter into Bay Harbor, but at the same time, they'll do, like any business, they'll do an analysis and they'll make a determination as to whether or not, because there's one just over the bridge this way and one just over the bridge the other direction, it may not make economic sense and this may all be moot. But I think that's for the individual citizens to decide. And we've seen it up and down Ken Concourse. There are plenty of businesses that go in and out of business very quickly. And unfortunately, that's the case. But I have no problem letting another business, if they believe that this is something that the citizens want, letting them have a shot at it. And if the citizens don't want it, we'll know pretty quickly and they will shut down.
Mayor, may I inquire of the town attorney?
Yes.
Frank, if the town were to regulate as opposed to ban medical marijuana, and later on either the legislature or the people in the state of Florida vote to legalize recreational marijuana, would having a medicinal marijuana facility automatically result in recreational marijuana retail outlets being able to do business in the town?
That's hard to say, because if it were to become legalized, it would have its own statute or possibly piggyback onto this one. So it's hard to say what the legislature would do. However, in other states where they have made it in which it was recreational, they've allowed the dispensaries to also sell those as well. So I can't tell you what our legislature will do in its infinite wisdom, but I can say that other states have permitted that in present dispensaries.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is a very difficult vote. I mean, I can tell you personally, when my father was alive and struggling on chemo, I wish they had medical marijuana. I really do. He was one of those people that didn't take the synthetic and was offered it, and I wish it probably would have made his life a little bit better at the end. The people spoke, you know, the threshold in Florida is over 60%. The people spoke in favor of this. I'm sure there are residents that would not be too happy about having a business open up, but also, where are we as a government to impose a restriction on the property owners that have, with all sense and purposes, the right to have such a type of business that has been legalized in our state? And to be quite honest, it's also heavily regulated. From my understanding, speaking to people in Tallahassee, this is not the type of business where anyone could just go in and buy something. We're not talking about people aren't supposed to be getting this type of drug. Like Frank said, it's going to be regulated just like a pharmacy. You could just say there's plenty of drugs at the pharmacy that cause a lot of harm to people too. I have to err on the side of caution and say that we should allow it. I think that the market will correct itself, that if there's no demand for it, the pharmacy or business would go out of business. I like to give our property owners the right to the fullest extent of their property, and also the people the fullest extent of their rights, considering the fact that the people voted in favor of this. So I'll support it.
Anybody else?
So at this point, we just have to figure out which way we're going on it. That's really what it comes down to. I mean, I guess...
Is there anybody in the public?
Well,
there's been no
anybody sign up?
conversation.
If nobody
signed up at this
Okay,
point.
I think we have a
So
majority.
there's no motion, but I will make a motion. I'll move that we actually go ahead and allow it, but we'll set up regulations that the council believes are appropriate, including the distance from the school and any other thing that we come back with at a later time. So we'd have to...
Is there a second?
Second.
Yeah.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Let me just clarify, because of the business tax receipt, that the moratorium is still in place until an ordinance is adopted. So the council taking a vote saying to move forward, it just means that we need to bring you back an ordinance.
It failed anyway.
Right, it failed, so the moratorium...
I thought it passed, I'm sorry.
No.
Right, yeah, so, okay, so, yeah, because the way it was voted upon...
We did not get the vote.
Okay.
So...
Yeah, do a roll
you have
call
these
and
three,
restate exactly what we're voting on.
Please.
Okay, we simply...
The motion was to bring back regulation.
To bring back for regulation. Bring back, exactly.
Regulating
An
it.
ordinance regulating.
Right.
Right.
As opposed to banning.
And you can still vote no against it, it's just, this is...
Right. Okay, and Jordan seconded, so we would...
No, no, no.
Bob
Bob
seconded.
seconded.
All right.
Yes.
We would like a roll call.
Okay. Councilman Yaffe.
4.
Councilman Chicoche.
Opposed.
Councilman Saber.
Opposed.
Councilman Reed.
Opposed.
Councilman Berliner.
4.
Vice Mayor Fuller.
4.
Mayor Bruder.
Opposed.
Okay, so it fails 4-3. Thank
There
you.
you
So that means that we will bring back an ordinance to ban it.
Right.
There you go.
Right.
Either way, we still have to bring back.
Yeah,
an
of course.
Okay, that's fine.
Item 11.
Okay.
Consideration and appointment of 2 council members to the Board of Trustees Retirement Board.
Well, Jake,
The previous members of the board that have served in the last the last 3-year term were Councilman Isaac Salver and Councilmember Kelly Reed.
are
Just
you
so
willing
you know.
to do it again, both of you?
I'd like to know, well, I was going to ask if other people wanted to have a chance, because well, I
How
mean...
long have
listen-
you been on, Isaac?
I was on...
Actually, I looked at
Is infinity in play here? No. Really, I was on it a long time ago, and then I was off it for a while,
Right.
and then just like Marlene said, I've been on it for the last, 3
2012?
terms. Yeah, I mean, there's,
Yeah, twice.
like, honestly,
I think we have a good thing going, actually.
Yeah, I mean,
I think we
there's a lot of
complement each other. I've been on 1 term, 3 years. I am the recipient of a government pension. I have had training, on employee benefits
Yeah, wait,
in this
let me give you kudos, because the truth is, Kelly does come to the meetings prepared. She, in conjunction with Marlene, she's proposed some, good ordinance changes to the retirement plan that benefit the recipients or the participants in the plan. And personally, I think we make a pretty good team.
We're all happy with
We're
the
all
2 of
happy
you
to let
doing
the 2
it.
of you
So,
continue.
okay.
Thank you, Isaac. That was very nice. Thank you.
So we will keep the
There you go.
consistency that we have of Kelly Reed and Isaac Salver.
Great,
Yep.
thank you.
Thank you. Okay, number 12.
Item 12,
Hold on,
discussion...
hold on 1 second. Before we get to number 12, I just want to announce, I'm recusing myself from number 12. Did you want me to read off the thing, or just simply have it in here? I'm recusing myself. Yeah, I'm just recusing myself because I have a personal conflict, business relationship with Eugene Howard, who is making the application.
Okay.
Mayor, can we take a 2-minute break?
Yes.
I need to step out, but I'd like to be here for the full discussion.
I also have to recuse myself for item 12. I have a conflict, so...
All right, so let's take a 2-minute break.
All right, we'll take a 2-minute
Okay.
break. 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Yes, I already have yours. Thank you.
Starting the clock.
Yes.
Yeah, right, yeah, start the clock.
I didn't know about that one.
What could be his conflict? Jordan.
What can be his conflict?
She is the best.
I know.
She answers
She's
well.
good, but no, her husband certainly is the best.
Regarding an unsolicited offer for a public-private partnership for the construction of a new building that will house a town hall and a police department, and having an assisted living facility at the vacant lot located at 95th Street and East Bay Harbor Drive. If I can, before, just a little background. I think I could even take this back to when I first started. When I got here, there was a bid out for a public-private partnership to build a garage that included actually giving the land, making the 95th Street lot part of the enticement to do that project. We abandoned it because it was a little too, all the proposals didn't really fit what the town needed, and it kind of went away. Mr. Gene Howard, who was representing another client on another issue, we were talking, and he inquired about the 95th Street lot. It's not a wasted item that he has, I think, brought something before us before on 95th Street. It did not, the council did not decide to go forward with that. However, last year, we did a presentation on a renovation of the town hall, and it was really 2 years in the making. Kimberly Horn did an overview, and we presented a few options to the council. And one of the overriding issues that I felt or was getting was the cost of it. How much would it cost to renovate this building? How much it would cost to expand it or to tear it down and build it new? And again, it came down to money. It's very expensive to build a facility that has a police facility, a public works department, and what we have here. We don't have a lot of space. I mean, we're living in it, but I think everybody's come to that realization that this is a 50-year-old facility. It serves us, but it needs something.
Nip and tuck.
Yeah, nip and tuck. However, Mr. Howard brought up the idea of he said, I'm interested in that lot on 95th Street. He says, what if I built a building and gave you the first floor? I said, well, that would have been very nice. I suggested, how about 2 floors? Now, that lot is pretty big. It's almost 14,000 square feet on the ground, so it would mean about 20,000 square feet to us if he built 2 floors for us, and we would have that. That would almost essentially double the space that we have currently now. Some of the other things that we discussed further, he was interested, or his team was interested in this lot, which I think at some point we actually considered if we relocated the actual town hall. The only thing that was important to us was the sanitation facility and the public works facility, which need to stay in place, because to relocate that would be horribly expensive. I don't think could really be done efficiently. So with that in mind, we spoke about the 2 floors. Then first it was just the 2 floors as a shell. That's when we spoke about throwing this lot that the town sits on, the town hall, is one of 5. So the remaining 4 lots would remain with the town. This lot, the 95th Street lot, would be put into this proposal with some parking considerations, which would bring almost equal to what it would cost us to build a facility, build it out, and then furnish it and make it a viable town hall. Some of the pros that we kicked around were, I know, financial burden to the town. It would almost eliminate any financial impact to the town in that, from my point of view, we wouldn't have to assume the risk of we wouldn't have to worry about building the facility ourselves. We could actually stay in this facility until anything was built, and all we'd have to do is move over to that time. Town operations would be centralized. You would have the community center, the fire, police, library, and really we've talked about recently, and it's, we've seen it, the violence in the country, is having your police department literally across the street from the school, which is always a concern. I don't know what else to say. I know their interest over us was the assisted living facility, which there are none in this direct area. Another thing that I thought was very good was that this lot currently is not a taxable piece of property, and neither is the 95th Street lot. They would both become taxable value, and there would be revenue from that. So we would take 2 properties that literally do not bring money to the town, but would have value to that. And again, it was non-solicited. What you see in front of you is just a letter of intent to explore, to discuss if it's something that you wish to look forward more, drill down into, and that's where we are.
Well, I think before we begin, I think we should hear from the council if they even, before we even open it up to a discussion and a presentation, because if the council is not, does not want to move forward, then we shouldn't, or if we're going to open this up to bid, we need to have that discussion first before we decide on I think on anything else, because I don't want to waste people's time. I mean, is anybody?
I will say also that from a legal standpoint, and I'm sure Gene knows this, this is a P3 statutory public-private association, which would require us going out for bid. So we would basically take the bones of the letter of intent and the non-binding letter of intent and turn it into a proposal to offer to any other persons if the council wants to pursue this any further.
And does it have to be an assisted living facility, or when you open it up to bid, it could be for anything? So that where there's a
this is their proposal.
Correct.
So we have to give someone an equal chance to bid on it. So the answer is yes. Yes, unless the council decided that they didn't want an assisted living facility, which then would change the proposal. But all I'm saying is that, excuse me, whatever we do, we have to make it available to other bidders.
Mayor, in the past, we've had this situation, and each time we always we put it out for public bid, just because of what Craig said. It's just not to give the impression somebody had an inside track to do something, it gives everybody an availability to do it. Their proposal would stand against any other proposal, and then it's always up to the town's discretion to decide what's in the best interest of the town. If it's that, or it could be, something else. But
right, just following up, Craig, on what you were saying. I mean, I understand the proposal that is before us, the assisted living facility, but is there a way to make the bid package itself more broader based so that somebody could say, yes, I would, bid on with the public, the private portion being an assisted living facility, or in the alternative something else?
Can I just make a comment that we're not committed? Sorry.
We are not committed to
I'm sorry, can you state your name?
I'm sorry, Elsie Howard. We're not committed only to an assisted living facility. So even though that is part of the concept, we are open to apartments. We're open to other urban living components. It's not only assisted living.
Thank you for the clarifications.
Does anybody have any other?
Yeah, in the interest of full disclosure, also I'd like to say that I know Mrs. Howard. We don't have a business relationship, but we served on a Women's Health Initiative committee many years ago, so nothing that rises to the level of recusal, but it's a pleasure to see you again. I have to say that I like this format. We've been asked before to meet with developers, and even recently with the ballot initiative, and I'm very uncomfortable with that. So at least we're doing this now finally in a public arena where the public can hear. And I was kind of taken by surprise a few days ago when I saw the packet. I didn't realize that this was on the table. But as long as you're here, I would like to hear your presentation. And it's very generous knowing that this will be bid out again, and you'll have competition and you'll be putting your ideas out first.
Do you want to see the presentation?
Yeah, I'm interested in pursuing some type of project, I
just wanted
think.
to make sure that everybody on the council was going to move forward with at least having. That's fine.
But I can just say, we clearly, as a council and town administration, have been talking for quite some time, as Ron said, about what to do about town hall. We've seen different proposals which cost millions and millions of dollars of taxpayer money ultimately, or using reserves. So if there's a way to improve our public buildings.
Well, no, I know. I just want to make sure that we want to take this land before, and we want to open it up to a discussion.
Well, I don't think that necessarily that's what's being said. I think that they've prepared a presentation and that they've worked very hard on this, and that I for one would like to honor that what they've brought to the table so far. But I'm personally not ready to say that I want to move forward or don't want to move forward.
Well, I'm not necessarily saying with this this specific, but I'm saying you do want to open up that land to a joint venture.
I am not saying that.
If the deal is right.
I'm just saying I want to respect that they're bringing a presentation.
Some people might say, no, I have no interest in, not opening it up. I just want to make sure that were, before they have a discussion, before we send it out to bid, do we want to take our land and open it up for bid, and do we want to have a joint venture? I mean, I think that's the first question that we need to answer.
Do we want to do that after they do their
Well,
presentation?
I think it's sort of a threshold issue. I agree with the mayor. I mean, if the council is not interested in that type of project, I mean, there was one in Surfside which I think was proposed and withdrawn. So we're not the first community to look at that type of project and the possibility of a joint venture. But if the council isn't interested, we don't need to have a presentation. I mean, I welcome your hard work and your being here, but we don't need to sit through a presentation just as a courtesy, to be perfectly honest with you, if the council is not open to at least putting it out to bid or talking about it further and going forward. I mean, even if you go out to bid, you're not obligated, obviously, to accept any of the bids. You can look at what comes in and determine whether it's in the best interest of the town and its residents and taxpayers.
The non-binding letter of intent, of which you all have a copy, was authored by myself with Ron's help and Gene Howard's input, and kind of outlines the parameters of what the proposal involves vis-a-vis the town land and a private-public partnership. And I think the council can look at the letter of intent and decide whether they have an interest in pursuing it. There's no binding effect on the council, or whether just from what you see in the non-binding letter of intent, it's something that the council is not interested at this time in pursuing.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We have to first have the threshold of, do we want to even open it up? I mean, are we interested in using that land in a joint venture or not? Because if we're not, then there's no point in having a discussion or putting it out to bid and then having everybody come in and then decide, oh, no, thank you. I think that's the first step, is finding out what we want to do with that land. We need to decide that before we move forward.
Personally, I'm not ready to make a decision on whether I want to give up land or not give up land, but I do want to hear their presentation, which would give me information in order to process the whole notion of giving up public land, because I can just imagine, even if we're getting, $10 million worth of office space back, giving up, $4 or $5 million worth of property will, I'm sure, cause, a storm of controversy and public uproar. So, but I definitely want to hear, the presentation.
I want to just agree with what Isaac had said. I think that you guys, thank you for coming out, first and foremost. Thank you for the time and effort that you put into this, and I want to honor that and extend that out to you, because there's a lot of work that goes in to you guys standing here before us, before you get here. There's a couple of things that, just reading through the packet, and if you haven't read it, please go online. All of the information is there for you to look at. I am uncomfortable with the permanence of dispositioning land. So I will say that first and foremost. The dispositioning of land from the town makes me very uncomfortable to start off with, especially as I feel we are, the fiduciary partners and the keepers of the town land. I'm also not fully satisfied sitting up here tonight that we are in a position where at some point in the near future we would not be able to do something like this ourselves. I would like to ask if maybe JC and Melissa could look at, our tax rolls and give us like a projection and look at some funding options in terms of, were we to go ahead and start to look at, if we were to build our own facilities, what would our financial options be? What would that look like? I think we have buildings that are coming online. We have more tax funds that'll be coming on. I'd like to get a better understanding of what that's going to look like and what our options are independent of someone outside before I'm comfortable to say, you know what, we've exhausted all of our options. It's going to take us X number of years, and that's unacceptable because the life of the building is not going to be that. Whatever that is, I just don't feel that at this point I have enough information to be able to confidently say, should a taxpayer come up to me, you know what, this is the reason why I feel like this was the right decision or the wrong decision, and that's just where I'm settled at right now.
Can I just respond to one thing, since one of the hats that I wear is the chairman of the Florida Municipal Loan Council, and I'm constantly signing documents relating to...
You've signed some for us.
Yeah, well, no, actually, I think I actually had to recuse myself on signing those. But, yeah, we're actually one of them. But, yeah, there are a host of financing options that would be available to the municipality for long-term financing, where the debt service would be, quite reasonable, and it would be over a period of 25 years. We definitely qualify. We're credit worthy, and I mean, that would definitely be an option for the town if we did want to pursue a $10 or $11 million construction project for a new police station, town hall, and council chambers. So, but that being said, I still want to hear what these folks have to say.
Okay, go for it.
Go for it. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Jonathan Beloff. I have offices in Miami Beach, Florida. I'm an attorney. I've been practicing law for roughly 43 years. You all know why we're here tonight, for discussion of a potential public-private joint venture with the town of Bay Harbor. This is the type of thing that is going on all across the country when police and fire departments and other municipal services are trying to co-venture with the private sector in order to save money and increase their services to the community. It's happened most recently, and I think there's a handout in your packet from the city of Alexandria, Virginia, where they combined a fire department with a private sector retail and housing department, and it worked out unbelievably well. Surfside was trying to do it as well, as you know, and it may come back to fruition. Apparently it's off the table now, which I just heard from Bob Yaffe tonight. Before I introduce the nuts and bolts of the presentation, which is Kobe Karp, I want to introduce our team. First, Gene Howard, who you've heard about, who had the foresight to think out of the box and to bring this concept to the town. Gene is a transactional attorney who's been practicing for over 50 years. Our business partner, Arthur Shapolsky, who with his family has since 1935 built, developed, and repositioned over 250 commercial and retail and office and residential buildings in New York. Kobe Karp, our other esteemed team member, who's got an unblemished reputation as a world-renowned architect and designer. We will hear his vision for this, what we think is a very unique project, shortly. Mark Grant, also in the audience, is a former partner of mine and is a preeminent real estate and transactional attorney with Greenspoon Martyr. He specializes in condominium law, and as an aside, Mark has written much of what is today's Florida Chapter 718 Florida Statute Condominium Act. And finally, Elsie Howard, who's a community development advocate, is our voice of reason and has a wealth of experience in both public and private development. I would now like to introduce Kobe Karp, who will present the project.
As Kobe comes forward, I want to thank you for the opportunity to talk to you this evening, and we think that this is a great idea for this community. We're your neighbors. We're part of this community as well. What happens in this community affects all of us. We've lived in Miami Beach, Bal Harbor for 50 years. My husband grew up here. This community is very important to us. And whatever it is that you decide, we hope that you give this opportunity, this idea, the opportunity that it deserves in your community. There's a big opportunity out here for Bal Harbor and Bay Harbor and Surfside to be the leading iconic real estate communities of all of South Florida, delivering all of the iconic and safe measures that we need. Kobe is, I'm going to just push this unless you want to do it. Kobe?
No, I'm good. I got it.
Okay, he has it.
Hi, good evening. My name is Kobe Karp, 2915 Biscayne Boulevard. Before I just give you our thoughts and our process where we've been so far, I think as the mayor has said, I just want to touch briefly about the public land. If you give me a second, Stephanie. I'd like to have Mark just discuss it for just 1 second, and I'll come up as the architect.
Thank you.
Stephanie.
I'm Mark Grant. I'm a partner at the Greenspoon Martyr Law Firm. So I heard your concerns about the ownership of the land, and one of the ways these projects are structured, not as a condominium, but as a vertical subdivision. So we could do it so that, to satisfy your concern about the ownership of the land, the town would continue to own the land, would own the airspace through the second floor, and then basically conveying the airspace above that to the private partner in this transaction. So we could satisfy that need. Rather than doing it as a condominium where the land is owned in common by the people in the building, we could set it up, as I said, as a vertical subdivision where you're just conveying the airspace. That gives us a tremendous amount of flexibility. The condominium law, which I'm very familiar with, has a lot of requirements as to how the property is operated, who controls it, whereas you do it as a vertical subdivision, there is no statute that governs it. It's all done as a matter of contract between the parties. So whatever it is that you need can be put into that contract. That contract is very similar to a declaration of condominium. It's a declaration of covenants, restrictions, easements, so that the parties know exactly what they're getting into when it starts. So that's a very, very quick summary of the way to structure this, not as a condominium, but as a vertical subdivision. I've done a number of them in mixed-use projects where there's hotels, offices, residential, parking, and the building is divided up into those airspace parcels. And recently we were able to get the legislature to specifically require the local tax assessors to separately tax those parcels. Obviously, the town's parcel would be exempt, but the airspace parcel would get a folio number and would be separately taxed.
So what you're saying is that we own the land.
Yes.
Okay, so I want to make sure everybody, we own the land and the first 2 floors, and then whoever you got, well,
whoever's the
lucky would have from the second floor up, they would own the air rights, not the land.
Correct.
And they would be taxed on the amount of square footage or whatever that parcel of air rights.
Correct. Whatever the tax assessor determines the value is for that portion of the building.
Okay. Hold your thought. Anybody have any questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
Is it similar? It's probably not the same as a co-op?
No, a co-op, you have a corporation that owns the entire building, and there are shareholders that participate, and each of those shareholders gets a lease for their space. So it's really
so
not
it's
similar to a co-op.
It's its own thing.
It's its own thing.
Elizabeth, do you have a question regarding? No. Craig, I have a question for you. So we continue to own the land, but they have the air rights. But we own the land, but if they own the air rights, it's basically
You have an operating agreement, I assume, Mark, is that right? As to how the property is going to be administered and handled and decisions affecting the property?
Yes, we call it a declaration of covenants, restrictions, and easements. It's like an operating agreement in a partnership. It works the same way as to who is responsible for what, who carries the insurance, what happens if there's a casualty, easement rights. Obviously, the building could be done, and Kobe will explain, it will be separately metered, so you'll have separate expenses in that regard. You could have separate air conditioning systems, whatever. But yes, the agreement, the declaration decides exactly how everything works. And obviously, that's something that I would work with the town council to work out a mutually acceptable arrangement.
But there has to be, what if there's a dispute in the operating of the project? Does the declaration provide for resolution of disputes and differences on the property, I would imagine it would.
Yes. I haven't gotten that far into the weeds as to who would control the exterior appearance, for example.
That's what I was
That's the kind of thing that we would have to work through and work out a mutually acceptable arrangement. It could operate, if a dispute, we could agree to an arbitration resolution. There's lots of ways to resolve all these things.
It's different, obviously, than the town owning everything and making its own decisions. That was the point. I mean, it's a step.
Yeah,
What was your question?
my question is, what is the benefit versus doing it this way than just doing a condominium or a land lease? I mean, what is the benefit to the town by doing it with the way that?
You want to answer that, Mark?
Well, you could possibly work on some type of a long-term lease, but I think you're going to end up with the same kind of operating issues.
If I could, I think you set the rules, and I can tell you under the Condominium Act, which I deal with nonstop, you don't get to write the rules, and you're subject to the whims of the legislature.
So this, by having this, it's better for us because we get to set the parameters.
I would think so. I think you always want to set the rules. It would essentially be like a 3-story house, right, where you and your in-laws and all live together, and you have to write the rules to see what happens.
We kill each other.
Maybe a bad analogy, but
As Mark said, it's far less a matter of statute and more a matter of contract.
Exactly.
And it to some extent addresses the concerns that have been stated about giving up ownership of the real property.
But you're
I'd like to let Mr. Karp give his presentation.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you. So, I can go through the whole scenario, but I feel like tonight there is an opportunity, and some of the things I've heard is, it's nice to bring it out in the public and have an open thought process and discussion about it on the record, where other people outside of us can also look at it and come up with ideas and see what is best for the community and for the neighborhood. Speaking with JC, and it is, as Ron said, that this is a good idea in my opinion, so it's a JC idea, even though Ron tried to talk him out of it. But most important, there is an opportunity here where the municipality and the community can benefit and have an upside from a business transaction. And it's commonly done not only in this community, it's done in the United States, it's done throughout. And as you will study it, you'll see that there is a strong potential upside for the community to benefit. More so what we did is when we met with your staff, you have a program which was, as was mentioned by Ron, can fit in the first 2 floors. And we can easily have an entry which is separate and is unique for the public functions, where you would enter and it would be the functions of the city itself and the police. It would have its own security, to have its own entry. It would be completely separate from the functions, and as Elsie, the voice of reason has mentioned, it might be an adult living facility, it might be an apartment project or a derivative thereof, and we can discuss that together, where the amenities and the uses can be above, floating above, and or on top of the building, where the functions of the city happen at the ground level on 2 floors, and it has its own circulation and its own entry and its own identity. As far as what the building will look like, people know me, will tell you that I will decide that 100%. I'm not going to know. I like to work in a community. I like to work in a group. I like to have a dialogue. This is what it's about. And if we cannot seek here, and that's what I like about this team and why I joined it. John Beloff and I have known each other for years. Even Jordan Leonard's father, he helped put me in business. He's done a lot for me. I think that there is an opportunity here for us as a community, which is why I'm standing here in front of you and doing this basically on a pro bono basis for my good friends here.
May I ask you a question?
Absolutely, anytime.
What are you planning on doing with this property that you want?
Very good question. So some people said, "Oh, Kobe, why don't we just go ahead and demolish it? Why don't we do?" What happens is in my thought process, and it's not, finalized, but my gut feeling tells me that I would like to preserve this structure. I would like to build around it. I would like to find a way to build around it. I personally like this building. I've been coming to this building for decades. I'm 56 years old, and I have had the pleasure of being here many times. And I like the design, and I like the architecture of the building. I like the block that is open face, and it helps to absorb the sound. There's a lot of things I like about it. And I think that there is an opportunity. And I'm giving you my ideas, which means that anybody who's listening to the public record now can copy my ideas, and many people have done it in the
what
past.
Are you doing with it? What's going to be here?
That is up to us. I think that the programmatic discussions that I've had so far with your city manager, both of them, I've had the pleasure of discussing the program of what it will be in the new building. My thought process of what can happen here is that potentially these beautiful city hall functions, design review board, planning, zoning meetings can continue to occur here. I think that there is such opportunity, unless we together decide that we have a better idea of how it relates to the parking lot across the street and how it can connect in a better way. And that's what the community will dictate and tell us. It's just like when I met with the city manager, and they said to me, "Listen, Kobe, this is our program." They gave it to me in writing. "This is what we want. This is how it's going to work." It started to give me a more black and white direction of what it is that the final product can be like. My client sitting behind me hasn't even given me that yet. And we left it like that. That's why I didn't want to come in front of you and tell you, "Oh, this is the building, and this is what it looks like. This is what it will feel like. This is how much glass and stone it will have, or what it will feel like." I thought it'd be better for us to have an open dialogue and have a prelude to the discussion and the thought process together. So at the end of the day, it's more of a community solution. And that's the way I was raised, that's the way I was educated, and I think it'll be a better product in the end for everybody involved. Your question is a good question, and I gave you off-the-cuff feeling of what I think it would be in this building, because I have land immediately adjacent to me, which I can build and maximize the development rights in the FAR. And I'm pretty good at that. I've done it multiple times for multiple private developers and institutions domestically and international. But each project is unique and different, and each project has its own DNA. Buildings are like people. I happen to have 2 kids. They're from the same mother and hopefully from the same father. But at the end of the day, they're very different, right? It's amazing how different they can be. And the same thing will happen here. I think that the product at the end will be a Bay Harbor project, and it should be as such. It should be unique to our community. And that's what we are proposing.
Any questions?
Nope. No, thank you.
I don't have comments, but later.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your
We're
time.
going to take some comments from the audience now.
Let me just make
Okay.
one quick comment. I'm sorry. This, of course, is only a first step. And so we came to you this evening to say that we have an idea. And we've discussed the idea with Ron and with JC, and we came to you tonight to say that here's an idea that we think, all of us think, that would be valuable for this community. It's not fleshed out. Kobe has said that to you. We don't know where we're going. We've been very clear about the fact that this would be driven, this project is totally driven by your needs, by the police needs, because our component of it will follow the needs of this community. What happens, what specifically happens, in answer to your question, Mayor, is we don't know yet. All we wanted to do to come here today was to say, let's get an idea to go forward, to have the conversations, to have the attorneys talk about what the parameters will look like and what the structure will be composed of, so that we can move forward with your input, with the police department's input, with the community's input, so that we are committed to the aesthetic of the community and to build something on a vacant piece of land that would be valuable to all of you and to us as developers. It's not, there's nothing written in stone, not the commercial component of it, not the not the adult living component. We're only at the point that we wanted to have your suggestion that we could move forward into having conversations, and then we understand that it would go out for bid. We understand that leadership and the first one in, somebody can say we can do it better. We think we can do it better. So we're not afraid of anybody else coming in and saying that they wanted to bid. We've taken a lot of your time tonight, but our idea, we think that our idea has legs, has value for the community. It saves you money, whether you have to borrow, whether you don't have to borrow. We'll do that for you. So we'd like to be given the opportunity to move forward and to plan and to talk with no promises, with no commitment, until we are at a final stage where everybody is happy. You're all happy, the community is happy, administration is happy, police is happy, and the lawyers are happy. And then I'll be happy. So thank you.
No, I want to thank you, but I do want to let the audience out there understand
Absolutely.
that you're open to other use of the
100%.
facility besides assisted living.
100%, and I think that's important. That's an opportunity and it's an option, but it may turn out that we want to do, that we all decide that housing is more beneficial, and it may turn out that senior living is more beneficial. We're at early stages, and we know that there's an opportunity to do something that's creative and that fits the demographics of this community, this luxury market that we live in. We're your neighbors as well.
Right. I would appreciate if you let some of the audience so you can hear their comments.
I'm
and that
sitting
way,
down.
Okay, I do appreciate. Mrs. Newhart.
I don't have a question, but let her.
Frances Newhut. I own properties on 95th Street and on the Kane Concourse. And I'm very upset because this really razzled the whole community here, because number one, you put it on here as these properties being a vacant lot located on 95th and East Bay Harbor Drive. I don't know any empty lots on 95th Street. As a matter of fact, those lots are heavily used with cars and parking for the facilities in the surrounding area. I don't know if these people observed, but we had a project on Bay Harbor Terrace, beautiful office building, but they didn't have parking. So right now, they're not doing it. They weren't approved by P&Z. They don't have appropriate parking. We don't have appropriate parking. That parking lot is full to the hilt. And I saw people making faces, but we just gave the Church by the Sea with no parking for their ancillary usages. I have to tell you what they have. They have a 168-seat dining hall, administration offices, music room, reading room, secondary chapel, 8 multiple-purpose rooms, athletic activity room, youth room, programming, rooftop garden spaces, and this is besides an 386-seat sanctuary. No parking. You didn't even approve the ancillary usages. We never had the opportunity to, and you didn't require them parking. Here we have new people coming in, and I'm so happy that the architect loves this building so much. We, who were supposed to have millions of dollars of TDR government money to help our children in buying these parks and all this other stuff, I haven't seen a new park since I've been here. Yes, I have, 98th Street. But other than that, 10 years ago, we haven't seen anything new. There also was, you know, I don't know where the manager didn't see all these things happening. And I really don't appreciate you giving away our public land to new developers without our problems being resolved, especially for the children, for the parks, and for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Judith, I'm sorry, I can't. Thank you so much.
I'm going to make it very short. Before we begin even...
Can you state your name?
My name is Judith Etzion.
And your address, please.
What is... You talk about the benefits.
Your address, please.
I'm in Colsey Towers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we even begin, you talk about benefit. My question is, what is your set of priorities we are in a 50-year-old building. You talk about it as if it came from ancient Greece. This is a building that could stand for quite a while. In your set of priority, are you the first ones, or should you spend more on the town itself? This is something you should think about. Secondly, one of the reasons I came here was because of this very nice matchmaking of the town with what was proposed as assisted living. I'm working with assisted living. The first thing that occurred to me was to call Ben Stiller and ask him to make a movie of the beautiful combination between a town and assisted living above it. You do not do things like that. It's not for the money, it's not for the developing, it's not for doing, it's doing for the community. And I believe very strongly that this beautiful building could stay for quite a while before you make any decision, because there are other priorities. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any comments? That was it?
I have some.
Okay.
Thank you very much for the presentation. It was educational. A few things had never heard of before, so that's always good. We have to open our minds. In general, I've always been opposed to selling any of our land. I like that we have it, but like I said, we have to be open, because you never know what we could come up with. We definitely need more parking. And for me, the reason that I'm willing to be open about, giving up these 2 parcels, it's just about the deal, too. I don't really like it, but before I would be able to make a decision, I would ask that each one of the components that are part of this deal, the pieces of land, the parking trust spaces, the TDRs, the cost per square foot, I would like everything to be assessed to value, so we can actually look at how much we're keeping, how much we're giving away, what the value is in the deal. That's what would make me feel comfortable, because I can't figure that out of my head like you guys can. So that would help me a lot. I'm glad you said that the ALF is not a deal breaker, because as much as I can think of, it would be nice to have an ALF so some people could bring family members close. We have to look at the benefit of the town, so that's one benefit, that you could have your family members close. But in mixed use, do the residents of that mixed use in proximity to our business district, are they likely to really patronize those businesses? And maybe not with an ALF. We're in an evacuation zone. So, that's an extra burden on resources, and also, for you. So I don't think that's a good idea. And then losing both of these pieces of land, it's a little odd, because I'll tell you, we have a parking issue. It's debatable whether it's a full-blown crisis or just, something that we need to prevent down the road. But I believe that this quadrant of the business district where this building sits, this is where, the next garage or massive public parking opportunity should be. Because we talk about it all the time, that we're only 2 blocks, we have a garage, but that garage, it sort of gets reused and resold and recycled a little too much. We keep selling spaces there, but we have a hotel all the way over on East Bay Harbor, and you might be thinking, well, all the way over, it's really like a block and a half. But I think there's a perception with people that come here, they want to park very close, and just adding that street, it's like almost, another city. It's like another zip code. I have to park all the way over there. So I'd always hoped that there would be an opportunity for this mixed-use kind of thing to be on this side, in this northeast quadrant of the business district. So, and the comments of the few members that are here, are very understandable. But just like the last referendum that we had, my suggestion was, let's really engage the public, bring them in here, because it would be a shame with, 2, 4, 5 people, present, and I know this is just the beginning, but we really want a lot of people, because the last thing you want is, you know, for people not to know about it, and then you have all this opposition coming out of nowhere, and really, you know, you do have some quality ideas and a quality team with, you know, a lot of experience. So.
Okay, yeah, I have a question. Marlene, the property that we're discussing on 95th Street, what is the height limitation there right now? Isn't it 65 feet?
It's 65, but it is in the B1 district, and they could go to 75 if they have a public benefit.
Right.
We just passed that ordinance
new
recently.
ordinance.
Okay. All right, so, and it's that parking lot that's on the south side of 95th Street? Is that what you're
No.
We're talking
Isaac,
about
it's,
the...
it's where we're currently
Doing
going
the
to
park.
start building the park.
Yes.
Right next to the...
Right next to the community center, which right now
So
is
it's on
just
the
gravel.
It's on the corner.
Okay, it's on
The corner of 95th.
Yes.
That's what I thought we were talking about the whole time.
Yeah.
Just,
You know.
okay, so, all right, so we can, so the code, according to our new regulations, would allow a 75-foot
Right.
building there. Not that I think it would really fit there, but, you know, you know, although the presentation was informative, and the team seems, you know, quite competent, and I know I've been sitting on this side of the desk while you've been on that side of the desk for many, many years. Yeah, I'm not 100% convinced that this is a good deal for the people of the town. You know, I'm not, like my colleagues, I'm not crazy about giving up 2 parcels of land to get 20,000 square feet in return. Yes, if it's finished, it's a little bit more valuable, but you know, I'm not really convinced that this is a good deal for the town. And you know, I think the things that Ms. Etzion said, you know, ring true, that the bones of this building are probably pretty strong, and you know, if we, with a little bit of creativity, you know, we could, you know, possibly do something, you know, that's not a joint venture, but you know, I don't, at this point, I wouldn't support the deal as it's presented.
Do you support the idea of moving forward and going out to bid and having a discussion on the property, or are you...
See, you know, to respond to that,
well, because we need
Stephanie, because you know, I'm still phased by the fact that we had that property sold for $2.5 million. You know,
that was at
years
another
ago.
time. You know, when that happened, the height of the market was the height of the market, and then, you know, the deal went south, and you know, we had the value of it went down like everything, and then it came back a little bit, and then we had interested at least 3 proposals from other people, which were entertained. You know, it was always part of the financing pro forma that we did when we built the garage, because we just borrowed from other accounts to pay the $2.5 million we didn't get. Now, since that time, we've put money in the bank from TDR sales. Our reserves have climbed. Even after taking out $3.7 million to buy 98th Street, we still built it. It's back, you know, fairly healthy. But when we went, you know, and again, I just go back not too long ago, I mean, there was a lot of pushback that we don't want to spend the money. You know, it's a lot of money. And, you know, can I speak just as somebody who lives directly next to my neighbor over there from 10300, who spoke just now. I would rather do something that you could do for free than, you know, we can always borrow money. And I would agree that this is a great building. I've always liked it.
Ron, this is hardly for free. You know, this is
But
not
you know
free.
what, there's an equitable, there is a balance.
It's no cash, but call it what it is. This is not, we're not exchanging currency.
I'm not saying it's
but
for
we're
free.
exchanging
I'm not saying
assets.
for free. Okay, but it's nothing is for free, but it's a balance. You know, you have to come from balance. At the end of the day, Will our reserves be the same? Yes. You know, they should be the same. Will we have a brand-new facility? Yes, we will. Will we retain ownership depending on how anything is structured? And again, that's semantics because obviously if we have the first two and the air rights, but it's taxable value, which we don't have right now. I don't know what will happen to this building. You know, nobody knows, but as I said, it checks off a lot of things that doesn't cost the taxpayers money. Do you want to, if I didn't have to borrow however many millions it cost, I would try to do it in-house.
Okay,
And then there's the worry of building, there's the worry of all that other stuff. There's a value to that not having to move around. And that's all I'm going to say.
Okay. Bob.
You know, I very much appreciate your presentation. I mean, they're very interesting ideas, and, you know, I'm not ready to rule out anything in particular at this point. It's not too long ago that the council appropriated money for a study with respect to this building. And we were presented with 3 or 4 or 5 different options for the renovation of this building, the expansion of this building, the building a floor over the parking lot behind this building to increase the, you know, the amount of space that we have for our, you know, administrative staff as well as the police department. And I think a number of members on this council were sort of very surprised at the cost of those renovations, whether it was renovations, additions, and looking at the, you know, the cost per square foot, and, you know, comparing that with commercial projects and other residential projects and so forth. And it seemed to me that the consensus was, after spending, it's not an issue of spending the funds, you know, whatever it was to get that study done, but that type of project just was too expensive for this particular property, and that there was no way that we could justify spending that amount of money to renovate this building or expand this building. Now, you know, I've heard a lot of discussion from the administration over, you know, the last couple of years that we're sort of growing out of this space. I mean, I think that you could make do if you had to. I mean, if we didn't give you the alternative, but we've spent a lot of time. I mean, Stephanie, even after, you know, you took over that center chair, I mean, you have looked at the building and you've had some comments about it and have recognized, you know, some of the work that really should be done in this building. So I'm not sure what the solution is. I'm not ready to rule out anything. I mean, Mark Grant spoke about, you know, had some interesting ideas about the way the project could be structured, where you're not necessarily giving up, you know, the real property, but giving up air rights. We had discussions about the property across the street, which we don't own, the parking lot across the street behind the 1111 building, and we had talked about some type of, you know, public-private partnership, perhaps over there, but got caught up into air rights issues, and it doesn't seem to be something that's feasible over there at this point in time. But we talked about a multi-story building with parking and perhaps a school and recreational facilities and so forth, as well as perhaps moving town hall over there. So, you know, we've explored a lot of possibilities. I think that if the council and the public think that we need a better facility and we need more room, then we need to explore all of the options. If the council and the public think that this building will suffice, and that, you know, Marlene, we've had, you mentioned the other day, you know, you've got money budgeted to replace the carpeting and do a little spitting up downstairs, and I'm not being facetious about that, but you know, the working conditions do need to be improved downstairs. You know, we can leave it at that, but we need to, it's a threshold issue that we need to determine. You know, I mean, Ron has a good point. I mean, we have X millions of dollars in reserves. We're very healthy right now. In a separate matter, we're putting away millions of dollars to replace the bridge one day. Those funds are not going to be used. The TDR funds, which we're accumulating, are for a public purpose, whether it's for more parks or parking garages or other facilities. You know, that is a finite resource as well, as we don't have that many more TDRs in our bank, the town's public bank. So I think we just need to, you know, give some careful consideration. And if we do go forward, it doesn't seem like you all want to, but if we did go forward, it would give us the opportunity at very little cost to explore other, you know, to explore all of our options and to be able to compare, you know, again, take another look at perhaps renovating or expanding this building with, you know, moving our public space over, you know, on the other side of the town near the school, near our community center and near the garage. We could go one more floor on the garage. We retain that possibility as well for additional parking over there. And right now, we don't know what's going on with Ocean Cadillac, whether they're staying, leaving. They use a good number of parking spaces in our parking garage right now, but if they leave, there's a lot more parking that's available. So, while we're looking at perhaps these options or other options, we need to see how that shakes out and what's going to happen with the parking garage. But, again, you could go up another story over there. So that's my thoughts.
JC, I'd like to hear from you, since you are now the town manager and you've taken over.
Well, I've heard the conversation for a number of years now. This building is approaching 50. We had our 40-year inspection. Very soon, I'm going to be coming to you guys for money for roof, for paint. And it's hard because those things that I have to do, and from some council members I hear, I'm not going to spend a nickel on this building. Yeah, what does that do to me? I have a code violation here in essence, and that I have to take care of. And this building is not getting any younger. One of the options that we didn't necessarily look at, if we're going to look at staying here in this building, is, and I don't think we looked at it in the options, is just basically just gutting the office spaces and reconfiguring the office spaces to make it a little more functional. And maybe that is an option. Us staying here, putting new roof, new paint, and staying here. How long will that last? We don't know. Honestly, the deal that they brought before us is quite interesting, and I think it really is worth taking a look at. It's worth taking a look at because they're offering to build us a building. And the way I look at it is like this. That's our piece of land, right? And the cheapest way to build a building is when you don't have to demolish anything that's there. And right now, that's a blank piece of land. And if we were to build it, just the way I picture it in my mind is, well, let's say I put a cell tower there and they can pay for the building. Well, that's kind of like that idea, except for this will be a different type of use on top of that. You find a different way. They just said that we would keep ownership of, or we could keep ownership of the land, and we would get a free building. Well, not free, you know what I'm saying, but a building out of it. There's really no other space in town. I've heard from some council members saying, "Oh, let's get with the business owners on Kane Concourse and see if we can come up with something." Well, that's like herding cats. It really is. I mean, we've tried, and the business owners or the landlords on Kane Concourse, they're business people, and may not necessarily be the easiest bunch to get together and to come to some type of agreement because everybody's going to be looking out for themselves. So I don't have an answer. I really don't have an answer right now.
Okay.
But there is that option.
So I'll tell you my feelings. I think there's I have a problem with giving up this piece of property and that piece of property. I think that for me is, I'm not comfortable with that. I mean, if you want to talk about just that property and doing something on that property, but that property is worth $2.5 million. That's what we were offered once upon a time. So we're giving up, basically, we're paying them $2.5 million for them to build us a facility. I mean, that's what the value of that land was and is. I think that I'm not comfortable giving up this land, not knowing what's going to go on here, and giving up that land. Because if we give up that land, then we can use this land for parking. We can build a parking garage here if we needed to next to it. We can build another park if we needed to, but I think we're giving up a lot. As far as the assisted living, I'm very comfortable with the fact that they are willing to explore other options besides that for the same reasons that Kelly said. I mean, yes, it would be nice to have a place for our parents if they needed to be near us, but we are two barrier islands, and I think the resources to the town in a time of an emergency would be tremendous. So I'm not a big fan of assisted living, although I'm open to other uses of that property. But the deal I'm not happy with the deal. I personally will not vote for giving up both pieces of land. So I think that that's my position. I am opening to having a discussion of what we do on that land, but I think that for me, we need to hold on to this and make a decision, because we do need parking, and if we're going to give up the amphitheater there, then our citizens want more parks, more parking. And I think these 5 lots is something for us to have that conversation about.
Either Frank or Craig, and this is kind of an odd configuration of the council, since 2 council members recused themselves. In order for us to vote on something like this, if there was a motion and a second or whatever, do you just need a regular majority, or do you need a supermajority for something like this, because we're giving up public land and all that kind of stuff?
No, just a regular majority.
Just a regular majority?
Yeah, and maybe the way to do it is to just pursue the investigation, let the council ruminate on it, think about it. I think if you did anything substantive, you'd really have to notice it as an agenda item, because this doesn't really give the public, the kind of notice that I think it would need.
Right.
If you're going to just pursue some further thoughts and discussions and kind of table this for further future discussions, that's one thing. If you're going to take any action, I don't think a motion would be appropriate at this time.
Mm-hmm.
So what is that? So are we going to open it up for?
Do you want to take a look at like a straw poll of the council?
I do want to see. That's what I'm trying to see, is what is the pleasure of the council, so that we can give direction to our manager as well as to the people in the audience of where we're leaning. Are we leaning towards moving forward and having a discussion and opening it up to, because we need to, either way, we need to open it up to other people besides the people in front of us? Are we not, like I said, are we not opening to having this discussion and moving forward with any use on that property? We need to give directions in some way. So if I could take a straw, like he says, a straw vote of where we're leaning towards, that would be great.
For me, I kind of have 2 thoughts, and I'm just going to put them both out there. I think the way that it stands and it looks right now is just not something that I can be comfortable with as a responsible member of the council and as a representative of the public. I think if the council decides that they want to continue any sort of discussion, I think the way that makes sense to me is having all of the information that I had requested from Melissa and JC, having all of the information that Kelly had asked for, and bringing it back a couple months later and having a separate meeting just about that with that information. But as it stands right now, I'm not comfortable with it.
Are you willing to come back and have a separate meeting after the information is given to you, where we then invite, proposals? Well, we open it up to proposals after the information is given, and having a separate meeting with the public, in a completely separate meeting from the council meeting, just a workshop specifically on this?
Well, I think we've seen what they're going to offer.
Well, I think
from these particular lovely ladies and gentlemen that are sitting in front of us, what I'd like to bring back is what our team is able to put together to look at what our other options are. I think we've received all of the information enough information to start to get an idea of what that would look like.
But that's not the thing is that if we decide,
It's
there
just
are
an
other,
idea of
right,
what it would
but
look like.
there's many, I'm sure they have many other ideas, and other people do too. So my question again is, do you want a workshop in which the information has been given to us and we open it up to the public to see where they want to go?
Well, I mean, this is quite public, but...
Well, but I mean,
a separate... like just a standalone workshop.
A standalone workshop in which we advertise to the people of the island and have them come out to help direct us and where they want to go.
Again, for me, I want to know the values of all the components, what we're getting, what we're giving away, because I really can't comprehend putting this deal together. You know, we may look at it and say, you know, it's not balanced or upside down. You know, I think you guys have a better idea than we do. I know you do. It's your business. So I would like to be armed with that information provided by our people.
If I could make a suggestion, I mean, you guys can maybe, and I'm not going to say table it, but like the mayor suggested, have a meeting. I'll get you guys the data you're looking for, and at that, not necessarily, you know, can this idea, but just table it until we have that meeting, and then just be armed with the data.
J.C. Nate.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
You know, from your perspective as the new town manager, if we're going to pursue further meetings and have a workshop, I'd like your analysis and your staff's analysis of what facilities this town needs going forward. What are the projections? What type of facilities do we need over the next 10, 15, 20 years and into the future, so that we know what we're really planning for? Because if we don't really need a much larger facility and we don't need 20,000 square feet, and that's something to take into consideration. So I'd like your again, perspective on that and your projections and what type of public space we need.
Be my pleasure.
I would just venture to say that after the council gets through the informational gathering stage, then and only then, if the council decided to pursue a public-private partnership, that then we would zero in on the different factors, because if we put out for bids, we have to be specific on what we're asking someone to bid on. Okay, and this is one proposal. They, I'm sure, have flexibility. There'll come a time when, if the council wants to answer the question in the positive, yes, a public-private partnership may be desirable, then we have to talk about what you would want the terms to be, and then we would go out for bids. It's just premature.
Just if I can just make a couple of comments, and I think we're pretty much wrapping this up at this point. It's funny because I'm thinking back on when Ron originally presented the notion of creating a new town hall space and this and that. I wasn't that convinced at that point whether we really had to spend $11 million of tax money on a new town hall.
I hate to cut you off. There was never an intention to rip down this building and build a new building. It was to add another space, and it boiled down to actually renovating this space.
Right.
But at that point, it was just
and you look, you presented it well. I'm not bashing you. I'm not bashing you because you presented gold, silver, and bronze type of plans. The gold medal was $11 million, like brand new building or whatever. There was a middle point, and then there was a $2.5 or $3 million renovation, keeping kind of the same footprint, but improving the interior elements of the building. My point of view comes from that of like a smaller government, more efficient government, and this town is not growing anymore. It's 255 acres, 5,900 people. It's not as if anything is changing that much that would require so much government. I think with some creativity we can, employ this space in a more practical manner and make everybody happy and comfortable without having to part with, two of our choice parcels of land that we own.
Okay, so we have a mixed bag here. I think that what we need to do is I think we need to first find the information. We need Melissa and JC to, come together and give us a report on exactly what Kelly and Elizabeth has asked for. And Bob, sorry, Bob. And then after that, I think that we then, if we choose to at that point, at the next council meeting, hopefully you'll be able to get that information. It'll be in January, and we'll have plenty of time to look at it, and each one of us individually talk to Melissa and to JC. Then in January, we can have maybe a discussion among us whether we want, at that point, after the information is given to us, where we want to go from there. I think that, is that what we're comfortable with?
I think that's fair.
Is that fair? Okay, I want to thank you for your time, and I'm sure you'll be talking to JC. Come January, we will have some kind of directions to give everybody.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank
Have
you.
a wonderful evening.
Okay, let's call in. All right. Well, while we're calling in, JC. Oh, we need poll votes.
Stephanie, we need to call the...
I know. I just said to Bridget if they can call them in. I don't know where they are.
I'm the only one who's hungry. Like suddenly very hungry.
Well, since you're the younger one by such a big distance,
In my
you
years
get
of
hungry,
service here, yes.
you get hungrier. That's not how you presented it. Just for the record.
Did amend the comment to say,
You know,
and years of service. Elizabeth made quite
I
clear.
didn't, you know,
Careful.
I'm very old, so I didn't hear
I'm
that
very
part.
careful.
All I heard was the one that you're so much younger.
Jordan, let's go.
I mean it as
And I
respect
know
for
that
you
you
guys.
are.
You guys
I
have
mean, it's a fact.
put in many more years than I have of service.
Yeah,
Let's
100%.
go.
But
Ready?
you are a lot younger than...
Number 14,
13.
Jordan.
Younger.
No, 13.
13. Jordan.
You want me to just read the item?
Yes,
John,
read it.
Item 13, consideration and approval of a proposal from Keith and Schnars in the amount of $165,082.50 for construction, engineering, inspection services for the Broad Causeway Corridor Enhancements Project.
This is new information.
As you remember,
Okay.
as I've mentioned in the past, we have a federal earmark. And just to give you a little history behind this, I was talking to Councilman Salver earlier about the history of how we ended up getting $1.2 million. Back in 2004, 2005, around there, when we were replacing the West Relief Bridge, that's the westernmost bridge between us and North Miami. We replaced it. Councilman Salver actually went up to Washington, D.C., met with Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and they're securing a 1.2 million federal earmark for the replacement of that bridge, which was under construction at that time. When that money was, sent down to the state and for us to collect it, the state was like, okay, well, let me see your design plans. I see you haven't gone out to bid. Let me get your bid documents. And I said, no, we're under construction. And so then they asked me, well, are you lap certified from the state FDOT? And we weren't. It wasn't a lap certified project. We were already out to bid. So they're like, well, you're not following the federal guidelines, so we can't give you the money. We ended up working with the county to get the $1.2 million through the county. Through the county incentive grant program. We ended up getting the $1.2 million, and I didn't think about it ever since. I never even thought about it. Fast forward, I don't know, till last year, I got a call from FDOT saying, hey, listen, your federal earmark is about to expire. Do you guys want this money? And I'm like, what money? It's $1.2 million. Do you want to use it? I said, can you refresh my memory? What project is this for?
$1.2 million.
And so they said, it's for the West Relief Project. And I said, we finished that a long time ago, and we got the money. I'm like, well, your federal earmark is still there. Do you want the money, yes or no? It said, well, yeah, can I use it? At that point, we were under construction on the rehabilitation of the big bridge. I said, can I use it on that bridge? And they're like, well, no, that one's already under construction. You can't use that. So one of the projects that Ron and I have been discussing is we wanted to do, well, first of all, we needed to replace the railing on the waterway bridge between the east and the west island. And then we also wanted to re-asphalt the roadway, the entire roadway on the Causeway Island, from the base of the bridge to the bridge, from basically the big bridge to the West Relief Bridge. And the idea is to have a wide shoulder and make that a path for the bikes for anybody walking, they could use that unless they wanted to continue walking on the grass. So I submitted that project to FDOT, went through the process. We ended up getting lap certified about a year ago, around this time actually. It got approved, and then we kept going through the process. Around that time, actually, you also approved the design with Calvin Giordano. We have the design, and that's done. And then about a month and a half ago, we got the notice to proceed from FDOT saying, all right, go out to bid. Last week, on the 7th, actually, we went out to bid, and that project is currently out to bid. Now, this is part of a LAP project. There's a lot of federal guidelines that we have to follow, and what this proposal from Keith and Schnars is to handle all the federal paperwork. They have to interview the employees of the contractors, make sure that they're being paid according to the Davis-Bacon Wage Act, and they will be handling all the paperwork for us. And that's why I want them.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Nobody's moved anything.
Move approval.
Now,
Second.
I do want to add, these people are one of our 5 selected engineering firms, and they are also, one of the reasons why we did select them is they have a lot of FDOT experience. So,
Thank you. So
This is related to one of the items later on with the Calvin Giordano.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's been moved and...
Second.
And Jordan has seconded, okay. Any discussion among us? No? Mrs. Newhut?
Francis Newhut, 1060 King Concourse. I'm a little confused with 13 and 15 because one is architectural, but it's the same thing. It's for the enhancement of the Causeway Island with the bridge. You specifically say in this one, which we're getting $1 million, the only thing I ask of you is because people have been asking us, and that is, it says here that we're paying this $1 million for a shared bike and vehicle lanes over the intercoastal waterway. Couldn't you have used some of that engineering to make it safer for pedestrians and bicycles? Is it possible?
I'm not sure I understand what you're saying.
Okay, we're getting $1 million something a grant, correct?
Correct.
Okay. It says here this project is providing a 7-foot wide buffered bike lane in both directions on the causeway, shared by bike and vehicle lanes. My question to you is, when they did the engineering for this approval, did they consider the safety of the pedestrian and bicycles? Because we've had a lot of suggestions that when it's not so busy, one of those half of the lanes would be shared with bikes. And do you remember that?
Okay, so let me just, I
Or
don't
is
want to
this
interrupt.
not
Just
the
may I ask
place?
one quick question, just because I know that in certain municipalities they have the double lanes. Is that what you're talking about, one for pedestrian and one for bicycles? You're saying just to design
No,
it with
when
two?
it's quiet. In other words, an engineer, we paid an engineer to do these plans with this $1 million, correct?
That's correct.
Okay? What I'm saying is, in those plans, did they, or I didn't see the plans, but are they making it safer for pedestrians and for bicycles?
Yes, let me answer that. If you just picture the current roadway right now, we're going to be re-asphalting the roadway, and then there's going to be an extra, I don't know how many feet is that? It's like a 6-foot buffer, like another 6 foot of asphalt on the side, aside from the two
Yeah, but
roadways.
I'm talking about at the bridge,
2 lanes.
at the point of the bridge where it opens.
But on the actual bridge, no, there's no.
Well, that's what I'm interested in.
The bridge is going to have, it's a shared roadway at that point. But once the bicycle gets off the bridge, they can go off into to that extra
So
shoulder.
how do you, okay, so how are we making that? I understand, but that was never the problem. The problem was getting over that bridge where it opens. It's very, very dangerous. I've tried walking over it. You can't walk over it. Forget that.
It's difficult to get over the bridge when it's open?
No, no, no.
The
bridge.
I would assume so.
The part where it opens.
Where it opens. Okay, where it opens,
Okay.
not when it opens.
What I'm
So,
trying
okay.
to say is that I
we
don't know if
can't
any of
touch-
you
we
have
can't-
tried.
Listen, we can't touch the bridge. We've tried 100 times. We can't touch the bridge until it's eventually redone. We're not able to re-engineer the bridge itself. That's the problem.
Okay, then can you put, because you're talking about railings, It is so dangerous. I'm so afraid when those people are walking that you don't, like, I've seen it in Miami Beach over that little bridge by St. Francis, or I don't know what it's called now, but they put railings so you don't fall over into the street there. Can you put a railing, even though it's narrow there, so you can't hurt yourself?
We tried. It's engineering, it would be requiring re-engineering the bridge to do that. We can't do
Well,
it.
they are engineering.
You can't, no, we're not re-engineering the bridge. No, we're not re-engineering the bridge. And keep in mind, whatever railing you put on there puts a weight onto the bridge, and that is carefully balanced so that it can open and close safely. And if you add more weight to it, it throws that balance off, and that's not part of it right now.
I can tell you this.
Very
Let me just say this.
Then you should just leave it for vehicles, because you can't safely go over that bridge, even with a bicycle.
We all agree with you that we would prefer to have some form of walkway over the bridge. The only thing I can tell you is that when we eventually have the bridge redone, or a new bridge put in, and it won't be hopefully for a while, but when we eventually do it, that will definitely be one of the things we would want to put into the new bridge. But right now, we can't do it on this one.
Okay. So,
thank you.
Just one other question. With that $1 million, why couldn't you have left the parking lot, let people drive over and use a facility over there, a park or something? Because we cannot use bicycles and pedestrians. It's not a use.
That's not road related. This money is for bridges, transportation related, and it's not for parks or anything like that.
Okay, but what child is going to go over that bridge with a bicycle? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's call a poll vote, please.
Councilmember Leonard.
4.
Councilmember Reed.
4.
Councilmember Salver.
4.
Councilmember Tricoche.
4.
Councilmember Yaffe.
4.
Vice Mayor Fuller.
4.
Mayor Bruder.
4.
Unanimous.
14.
Consideration and approval of a contract award to Bruteproof LLC in the amount of $29,750 to purchase a Hyper-V terminal server for the Bay Harbor Islands Police Department computer network. I think it was about a year ago where we were forced to separate the servers, us and the Bay Harbor PD, and so they are on their own server. The town has their own server, and then just maybe a few months back in the last fiscal year, the town purchased for the town server the backup, leaving the police department with still just one server. This is budgeted item, and it's the backup for the police department server.
Move it.
It did go out to bid.
Okay, poll vote.
You wait, before we vote, it's just a minor discussion. You know, my accounting firm recently completely converted from a server to everything is in the cloud. We own no server at this point. You know, we retained a company. They built out servers in a remote location in some bunker, you know, way off site, safe, secure, fireproof, hurricane-proof, et cetera, et cetera. Is there any reason why that is not an option for us?
It's not that it's not an option. During the last budget meetings, I've directed my staff, or my staff,
My staff.
I directed my staff to look, to think about it that way. You know, the trend is to move away from actual physical servers and move to a cloud-based. It will take a little more time.
Stephanie said it's less space.
Yes, it will take a little more time, and I don't want to leave our server, you know, basically unprotected, you know, without a backup.
We left it for a year unprotected, so wouldn't it behoove us?
Well, and that means it's a year older, and so
But this is the question. Ready?
I'm not going to have. Here's the answer. I'm not going to have an answer for you very quickly on that. There's a lot more moving parts.
But my question is, should we spend $29,750?
Yes, and the reason why is because I'm still not 100%. We're exploring it, but I'm not 100% certain how secure. I have to be very certain. It's
for public
this is our
records,
police department server on the cloud.
Right. Okay.
So I just need to make sure it's
when
safe.
this server gets replaced 2 years from now,
Right.
but when this server gets replaced, the next one will probably be cloud.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
But we're absolutely exploring that.
Okay, poll vote.
Councilmember Yaffe.
4.
Councilmember Tricoche.
4.
Councilmember Saber.
4.
Councilmember Reed.
4.
Councilmember Leonard.
4.
Vice Mayor Fuller.
4.
Mayor Bruder.
4.
Unanimous.
Okay, number 15.
Consideration and approval of a contract with Calvin Giordano and Associates in the amount of $20,305 for bidding and post-design services associated with the Shepherd Broad Causeway corridor. This it dovetails with the other item. This right here is for their bidding services, and then also for their work to coordinate when Keith and Schnars, they have any questions, so that they communicate with each other to properly report.
I'll make a motion to approve along with an appropriation from Broad Causeway Reserves to pay for it.
Second.
Okay, Paul, vote.
Councilmember Yaffe.
4.
Councilmember Tricochet.
4.
Councilmember Saber.
4.
Councilmember Reed.
4.
Councilmember Leonard.
4.
Vice Mayor Fuller.
4.
Mayor Bruder.
4.
It's unanimous.
Okay. Okay, number 16.
Number 16, discussion and possible action requested by Councilmember Leonard regarding the purchase of 3 SufaCore solar-powered standalone electric charging stations at a cost of $8,900.
Well,
No, total.
Is there any
Yeah, it's
public
total.
comment?
Yes,
This
there
was
is.
something that came back, that I brought back. I presented a couple years ago, and I remember there were some concerns back when the park was new, whether or not people who were homeless or whatnot would be frequenting the park. We obviously haven't had that issue. In Sunhouse Beach, they've had these, and a lot of parks around Dade County have had these, to allow people to have a sustainable charging station for phones is something a lot of parents and people want at the parks. And so for $8,900, I would ask that we approve it with park impact funds. We have money, so there would be no cost to taxpayers. So,
Well, let's hear.
Wait, say that again, the last one?
well, from park, we have park impact fees.
There's park
So-
impact fees that you can use. That's one of the impact fees we have.
Right, so it
for
wouldn't
Parks
be
and
general
Recreation.
revenue dollars, because we have that money and it has to be spent on parks, so we could use that money for that.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Thanks. I'll second.
Okay.
Victor.
Victor Maya.
Victor Maya, 1155 103rd Street. Where are all of the parents and residents here asking for these charging stations? I don't see them. This is a colossal waste of money for virtue signaling and nothing more. There are electric outlets at the parks. Most parents, when they go to the parks, their phones are already have enough charge in them to deal with emergency situations and things of that sort. This is a luxury item that we should not be paying for. I don't care what funds it comes from. You want to go out and seek donations from the Grand Beach, from TRIP, from some of the other vendors that we have in town in the business district, from the kids' preschool that uses the parks. Seek donations from them to cover the cost of these. We should not be paying from any funds that we have for this. This is merely virtue signaling, and it should not come at taxpayer expense. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. By the way, for the record, there are no places to charge your phone at 98th Street Park, or I believe at the Totlat Park. So there's no outlets there.
I have a question
Yeah.
about the machine, Jordan.
Yeah, sure.
In the picture, it looks like, people have to bring their own cord, because that makes a big difference. If you're out and about, usually you have your phone in your pocket, but do they make them where the cord's attached and then you just pull it out?
No.
Or do you have to bring your own?
These, I think you have to bring your own cord. What I've seen in the other parks that have had those, like Sunhouse Beach has had them for years, people kind of know to bring the cord. I've seen people in those parks that they bring their own cord. It's kind of like a common practice.
Are there other vendors of this, like maybe even the, the charger where you just put it on top, a wireless charger or something? They have those little devices and stuff. You just lay it because.
Some allow
Yeah,
that,
that's
some
my first impression. I'm not completely closed to the idea, and at least maybe that we would try one park. I definitely wouldn't want to do all 3 at once. Maybe some solution, whether it be this or not, and try it at 98th Street, which I think is the most populated park.
It is.
I've got an, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Wait, I want to say, I understand what Victor's saying, but there's a lot of kids, teenagers and kids, who have their phones and they don't necessarily come with it completely charged. And I think that so I think that what I want to know is, what are we giving up by putting that there? What do we have to take out to put this in there?
I don't think you have to
Not
take anything
$10,000.
out.
No, I
That's what we're taking out. And I'm not
Yeah, but Josh, you know, the fact of the matter is, actually, if this is coming out of park impact fees, it's being paid for by the developers.
Yes.
And, you know, of the hotels and the condominiums, okay, and potential office buildings, you know, because we charge impact fees. I
think there's other uses for those
there
funds.
may be, but I'm just saying.
No, I understand that, but my issue is this. I mean, let me just say this. I've got a great idea. If you go to the park with your kids, spend time with your kids. You know, watch the kids. The last thing I want to do is tell people, say, okay, here you go. Here's another distraction. Let your kid go play and potentially end up in the street because you need to sit there with a charge cord. I understand there's, you know, obviously everybody always is looking and everybody's phone's dying and everything else. We all have that issue. But that's not what the parks are for. This is not a charging station. This is a park. Be with your kids, play with your kids, watch your kids for their safety. You know, and fact of the matter is, you know, if we're sitting here to try and put an electronic into the middle of the park, it does go back to the earlier argument that we had a couple years ago about this. We don't know who that is going to attract to the parks. And as we have more things that are going to get built without naming certain things, where we don't know what programs are going to be brought up and down on King Concourse, we don't know exactly what people are going to be here, and at the same time, if we're giving them essentially free electricity in a park where the kids are, it doesn't seem like a good combination to me. I'm not voting for this.
Well, I know the question you're all wondering is, how much do we have in park impact fees? And that is $721,649.82.
I think we'll be okay.
I think we can find a better use for it.
But I was just giving you the information.
No, I appreciate the information.
Yeah.
Right.
You know?
Well, we have a motion, a second.
Let me
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Is there any reason why, like, we're just like diving right into 3 units? I mean, because it looks kind of bulky. This is solar powered, I presume, right?
Yeah,
It is.
yeah,
You
so
kind of just
solar.
drop it there and
Yeah,
solar
that on top it's the actual solar panel, so there's no drain on the town as far as cost.
You know, it might not be averse to like ordering one and seeing how it works out, and if everyone just loves it and it's great, let's order a couple more.
What about like in the airports now? They're putting like in the seating area, it's a post, so it's electric. I wonder what the cost is for charging that, like, you know, if you really had to. And honestly, I go out, I never have the cord with me, especially if you're going to the park. In my car, I keep a spare cord and a plug in case I have an emergency and I have to like bring it into a restaurant while I'm there or something. But what about just starting with that, having an area?
But also keep in mind, this has to sustain
you have
the
to
weather.
run electric. Right.
You know, this has to be built to sustain the weather, so it's not like when you're at an airport, it's obviously a different product. So, you know.
I'm not.
These are designed for outdoors.
Yeah, and that's the whole
Good point, though. Like people who just want to come
and just charge, and we're going to have all
I
kinds of
remember
issues.
we had a guy come to the front porch of our building to try to get Wi-Fi before people knew to get like the secure code, and it was kind of creepy. Like,
because it won't just necessarily be just phone cords, because you can use the same sort of USB charge for a whole bunch of different things.
Yes.
So we're going to have people that may not be residents, that may be essentially homeless, coming to those parks to get electricity. I'm not putting the combination with kids. I don't agree with this.
I don't think we've ever had.
I don't want to start. I don't see a need to create a distraction for people when they're with their kids. That's not a park.
That's true.
So, I mean, we could try one, but, you know.
Okay.
So, well, we have a motion.
We have a motion and we have
a second.
Is the motion for 3 or the motion?
Why don't we try it? We'll try 1 on 98th Street. Well, how about we do
I'll
that?
withdraw my motion. Was it my motion or your motion?
Yeah, it was you
I
seconded
think,
it.
I think you moved, I seconded it.
Yes.
So
then I withdraw my motion.
So, you'd rather do 1 or nothing at all?
I'm not sure, but I don't want to do 3.
So why don't we do 1? You know? So you can't. So you guys don't want to do this for the parents, all right?
I think I want to not do it for the parents. I think the parents are better off. I think the parents are better off without this there.
Tough love, Josh.
Okay. So, okay, move to adjourn.
to adjourn.
All right.
Happy
exactly.
holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays.
Election results. Thanks. Very good. There you go.
Flying tomorrow?
Yeah. That's a good question.
On the 1:30.